Hello again. As you know, I am Eli, the computer guy, and today we are doing an interview with Barnacules Nerdgasm, aka Jerry Berg. So I'm very happy to be able to do this Skype interview because I think it will give you folks an overview of the modern world of technology and how technology careers progress. So Jerry Berg, basically, he started off in a computer repair shop years and years and years ago. He then went and he got hired at Microsoft and worked there for 15 years until he was laid off, at which point he then took his YouTube channel, made it professional, and has been doing that for the past few years. So talking with him, we get an idea of how the technology world changes, how your technology profession changes, what he thinks of the past and what he thinks of the future. Overall, I think it was just a very good interview. So I was happy to spend about 2 hours with him yesterday to do this, and I think it will give you a lot of valuable information. Now, before we get to the interview, I do have to talk about our sponsors because, of course, our sponsors are what help pay the bills. So we'll talk about these real quick, and then we'll get to the interview. So we have Veeam, V-E-E-A-M, free backup for PCs, VMs, and Linux, all at Veeam.com. Dev Mountain. Dev Mountain is a 12-week web development, iOS, and UX design bootcamp intended to get you a full-time job in the industry. Learn to code at devmountain.com. INE. INE specializes in network training with hands-on labs, on-site bootcamps, and a focus on delivering the best in online networking courses. INE.com. Schoolie Mitchell. Schoolie Mitchell's purpose is to increase clients' profit by reducing telecom costs using software and processes at no risk. We only share savings. SchoolieMitchell.com. Plixer. With Scrutinizer and flow data, users can determine what traffic is on the network, who is originating the traffic, and who is receiving it. Plixer.com. And finally, Gilware Data Recovery. Gilware's partner programs help computer repair and IT professionals make money by offering data recovery services to their customers. Gilware.com. As I say, I don't care if you thumb up, thumb down, leave a comment, or subscribe, but if you could click on the links below, that would be very helpful for me because, again, they're the ones that help pay the bills. So with that, let's jump into this interview and see what Jerry Berg has to say about the modern world of technology, coding, YouTube, and so much more. So here we are with Barnacules Nerdgasm, aka Jerry. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
So the first question I have to ask is, where the hell did Barnacules come from?
All right. This actually is a really common question that gets asked. First of all, the spelling is completely wrong. Everybody nails me on that, but it's one of those things where it's like, I've had it from the beginning. I'm just going to ride it out. But it's actually kind of an amalgamation of Barnacle and Hercules. So the background story from it was my friend Eric calls me up on the phone one morning. This had to be about 10 years ago. And it was on a weekend. I was supposed to go over and help him with something. And so the phone rings. I wake up in a stupor, and I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, dude, you're supposed to be here like an hour ago. What the hell's going on? I was like, oh, man, my alarm didn't go off. I'm gonna roll out of bed and go jump in the shower and scrub the barnacles off. That's because that's like a common saying I used to say, right? Get in the shower, scrub the barnacles off. And he literally just replies back, and he's like, all right, you do that, Barnacules. See you in a bit. And he hangs up. And I was like, Barnacules? I was like, oh, that's kind of got a ring to it. And then I camped on it for a couple of days, and I was like, you know what? I like that. I like that a lot. And then I just went and changed everything over to that.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So how did you get, so we're going to talk about your YouTube career. We're going to talk about all of that kind of stuff. But how did you get into tech?
How did I get into tech?
Yeah.
Oh, this goes back to like the early days.
Right.
So I was always a little bit of a tinkerer growing up. My family didn't have a lot of money. I grew up actually pretty poverty level. And so my parents would often take me to like secondhand stores and stuff like that to get things, right? Like, like you had the Salvation Army and St. Vincent de Paul and all those places. And so they'd take me in there, we'd take our little bit of allowance that we had and we'd buy stuff. And I'd always buy stuff like RC cars because I really loved RC cars, but they were always broken. Right? They were always broken. You'd buy it from the dollar bin or whatever. So I'd take it home and tear it apart. My grandpa gave me a little soldering iron. I didn't even know how to use it. Like, I destroyed so much stuff before I kind of figured out my way. But I really, really liked making stuff work, and I really liked electronics, and I liked that aspect of it. Right. So that kind of took off. And then when I really got into the computer side of IT was about in the first grade. When I went into the first grade, we had a computer lab in our school that just had the old Apple IIes. Remember those old green screen monsters?
Yeah.
And so I really, really just loved the keyboards. Like, that was my first time really messing with a keyboard that wasn't on like a mechanical typewriter. And I loved pushing buttons. That was my thing. Just pushing buttons was like I didn't care what the computer was doing. I just wanted to push buttons. Like, you could have given me the keyboard and just threw the rest of the computer away, and I would have been fine at first. And so what had happened was in first grade, I wasn't doing so well. So they put me in this special education program with a couple of other kids. And one of the kids, the smarter kids that helped teach the class, his name was Kevin Hess. And he was in an accelerated learning program. He was also in the first grade, but he was accelerated like 2 grades ahead. Oh, yeah. And so he was teaching us all how to do stuff on these computers. And that was kind of like the thing to get us interested and get us going. And so he taught us how to program on these computers using BASIC. Remember the old line numbers, 10, 20? You had to leave yourself enough line numbers in between, because if you ran out of line numbers, you were screwed. There was no 0.5s. Yeah. That's why everybody, when you program in BASIC, it's always 10, line number 10, 20, 30, 40. Everybody's like, why do you do it in increments of 10? Because you have to pretty much assume you're going to screw up at some point, and you're going to need one of those other 9 lines in between. And so he taught us how to program. We started writing really, really simple games that were like text-based adventures, like Go North, Go West. Do you want to pick up the thing or don't you want to pick up the thing? And it kind of evolved from there. But it was pretty clear that I had an aptitude for it early on, because after 1 year of working with this class and this kid, I was already typing over 100 words a minute, which everybody was blown away.
Damn.
And here's the kid that was like literally put in the class eating his glue stick, and now typing faster than the actual teacher. And these games that I was making, that I was putting on these little Radio Shack floppy disks every day, and working on, we're actually turning into pretty sophisticated games. I mean, I actually had some logic in there. I had some random stuff for like dice rolls and Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. And so the teacher really saw that I had an aptitude for it, and so did my friend Kevin. So they talked to my parents, and my parents were poor as hell. They couldn't do anything. So my grandparents ultimately stepped in and bought me a computer to have at home. And you got to realize this is back in like the late 80s, right? I think this was about 89 when they did this. Was it 88 or 89? Somewhere like that. 2400 baud modem was like the fastest thing ever. And so they got me a computer, but they got me the wrong one. I wanted an Apple IIe, and they ended up getting me a PC. And this is like the fork in my life, right? So I ended up getting Laser Pal 286 from Sears, and I didn't know what the hell to do with it. It was running DOS 2 point something with GeoWorks ensembles, its UI, and like it was completely foreign to me. So I had to basically learn a whole nother computer at home than what I worked at school. Yeah. And it kind of pulled me away from Apple. But the funny thing about it is I would be an Apple person today if my grandparents had just bought that Apple IIe. The fact that they bought the PC is the only reason I went down that path.
Really? Wow. Huh.
But yeah, that's ultimately how I ended up getting into computers, was because I was the slow kid in class, and computers were like part of the program for the kids that were a little slower than everybody else, to kind of get them kicked into gear. And I just took off. I excelled at it. So it was one of those weird things where it's like, yeah, not so great with math, but hell, I'm great at making the computer do it for me.
So did you grow up, because you're in the Seattle area now, did you grow up in the Seattle area? Yeah.
Actually, yeah, my whole life pretty much I've spent here. Are you familiar with Kitsap County at all? Up here?
I mean, I know it exists.
Ferry in Seattle, and that's where you go. So yeah, I mostly grew up in like a little area called Bremerton in Port Orchard. Okay. And not far from Seattle, probably like a 30-40 minute drive. And then I moved closer when I started working for Microsoft out in the Bellevue area and the Redmond area. And that's where, and that's like the envelope where I've spent the majority of my life. I was actually born in San Diego in California, but my dad was in the military. He was in the Navy. So we immediately got restationed up here at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. Yeah. And so that put us up next to the Seattle area. And then I've been here my whole life. Literally, I haven't even gone to a different state until I was like, I want to say I was 16 years old when I went to Idaho. And and I just went to Canada for my first time. Like, I left the country for the first time this year.
Really?
Like, oh, right. Yeah. So I'm not a very well-traveled person. But yeah, the majority of my life, Pacific Northwest. That's where I've been.
So did you notice, I mean, because in the late 80s and 90s, obviously Microsoft was pretty big then. Did you notice very much technology in your schools? Were you like, thank golly I live around Microsoft, or...
Not so much, actually. This is when I started, at least in grade school, it was pretty clear that Apple dominated.
Really, even there.
Yeah, even here, like right next to Microsoft, Apple dominated, and the reason being is Apple was really big on education back in the 80s and early 90s. They were literally just giving millions of dollars worth of computers to like every school. Yeah. So like every computer lab in every school was predominantly Apple, and there'd be like one PC, one sad little. Like not even a Dell, like a Packard Bell. Remember Packard Bell? You'd always Packard Bell or the IBM PS1 sitting over in the corner all alone. getting no love because the rest of the lab was this Apple stuff. And Microsoft eventually turned that around. I would say that when I started getting closer to like the 4th and 5th grade in school, I started noticing that the labs were making a transition over to PC, or at least half and half. Okay. But the interesting thing that I always noticed was the PC stuff was so far beyond the Apple stuff at the time. Like, you had the 286s and 386, x86 architecture computers running VGA screens with 640 by 480 and 256 colors. Yeah. And here you had the Apple Mac Classic equivalent at the time that cost more and had a built-in monochrome screen. And so it took a while before Apple was on par with the PCs as far as the UI and everything like that. But again, I think that's why the school started to transition over to the PC, as they started to realize that the PCs at the time were actually becoming the front runners. Yeah. So, but yeah, most of my school, until I went into junior high and high school, I would say Mac was pretty much what we worked on exclusively.
That's fun. So then, because you wound up working at Microsoft for 15 years. So
yeah, I know. Weird, huh?
What's that?
I said weird, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, and let me also clarify that I absolutely hated Microsoft as a kid. Like even my PC that I had. Yeah. I hated Microsoft. I'm running my GeoWorks Ensemble, and I'm like, I am not installing Windows 3 on this thing. I'm not. I'm staying with GeoWorks, baby. I for some reason, I got into Linux because it was free, of course. Oh, okay. Yeah. And I used Linux as my primary operating system literally for years when I was a kid. Yeah. And I just had this hate for Microsoft and everything that they stood for. And I figured I would let you know, because that was like, there was a major turning point in my life later on that like pulled me away from that and moved me towards Microsoft. But yeah, going into the whole thing, I was completely anti-Microsoft almost up until the day I was hired.
So then what is that change then? Yeah, what did, I mean, if you were so in love with Linux, what would pull you over to Microsoft?
Easy, money.
Okay.
So what had happened was I invested a lot of time into the Linux platform growing up, ran Debian, Red Hat, a lot of the older distributions. Then later on started getting into stuff like SUSE and some of the more user-friendly stuff that was out there. And one of the things I realized really, really quick when I got older, I'd say when I was about 16, 17 years old, is every single place that I was looking for work that was running Linux paid garbage. Like absolute garbage. All the internet providers at the time, like there was one in Bremerton called Hurricane Ridge LLC that used to contract me to do work for them. And they had a Linux system, so they could only contract people that were familiar with Linux. So they'd pay me like, $20 here and $30 there to come in and like spend a day troubleshooting their system or rebuilding their kernel with the latest stuff, checking their security. And it didn't pay well. None of these paid well. But then I started researching Microsoft and some of the other companies that were running like Windows and SQL Server, and it was apparent that they were paying a lot more. Huh. Like, I mean, base pay at Microsoft, like right around $2,000 for an entry-level software engineer. So not even a developer, somebody who's just a tester. Yeah. Software tester was $50,000 to $60,000. Whereas the Linux jobs, the contract with these companies were all starting at like, a tick or two above minimum wage. And I was like, and that's changed a lot. Right, that's changed a lot over the years, but that's ultimately what shifted me in the direction of Microsoft. Plus, I was working at a little mom and pop computer store for a long time, and 99% of the users that were coming in with computers that needed service and needed upgrades and needed things were all Microsoft. Yeah. All the Linux guys didn't come in, because if you were a Linux guy, you knew how to like rebuild your kernel, you knew all the GCC commands, you knew what a compiler was, you knew what modules were. You had no need for any low-level computer diagnostics if you were a Linux user. But if you were a Microsoft user, you buy the short hairs, And so ultimately it was money that made me turn to the dark side. But as I learned more and more and more, I started to realize why a closed platform is more profitable than an open platform. I mean, it became kind of obvious to me. But don't get me wrong, I still love open source. Open source is still a huge passion of mine.
All right. So then to get to Microsoft, did you get your college degree or certifications or anything like that?
No, I never even finished high school.
Oh, really? Oh, didn't know that part. Okay, yeah.
It literally was, I had a lot of problems in school with fighting. I know I don't look like the scrapper type, but my parents were firm believers in that you need to stand up for yourself. Mm-hmm. And so my mom said, I'm not going to stand up for you unless you stand up for yourself. Well, it turns out standing up for yourself often leads to being expelled from schools. So I got in a lot of fights. You know, people would call me names like, you know, hey, fatso, and I'd turn around and be like, what did you say? And then next thing you know, we're trading blows and cafeterias getting busted apart, and then I'm not welcome back at that school anymore. Yeah. So I ended up getting expelled out of 2 schools in my district, in the district next to me.
Jesus.
I ended up having to go to an alternative school in a place called Shelton up here in Washington, out in the backwoods. Yeah. And so I go to this alternative school, and it was completely different than public school. I was actually pretty passionate about it. But ultimately, I didn't earn enough credits to ever get my high school diploma, and I was getting really sick of it around 17 years old. So I dismissed myself from school because my parents wouldn't let me do it. I just dismissed myself from school and went and got my GED at the local college. I took the test, passed it first time out, and had my GED, and I was like, all right, time to go to work.
Wow, that works. So then how did you get the job with Microsoft? Like out here, out away from Seattle and the Bay Area and all that, you're like, Microsoft, like it seems like this golden thing on the hill. Like how do you get a job at Microsoft, or how did you back in the day?
And don't get me wrong, I felt that same way about Microsoft, like growing up looking at it. It's like that was the juggernaut, right? Nobody else competed, and the fact that I was even in any kind of proximity to the Microsoft campus was always like something appealing to me when I finally started, you know, accepting Microsoft into my life, like a religion, if you will. But what ultimately happened was I worked at a small computer store called Mother's Board Computers. I know, most clever name ever. And they were operational literally up until last year. Unfortunately, their son lost his life to cancer, and they had a whole bout of bad things that happened, and it closed the store down. But it was like literally the last standing ma and pa computer shop in like 3 counties. And so I was there when they broke ground. What had happened was I was working, when I was about 17 years old, I was working at Sears, which is ironic because that's where my first computer came from. And I was a dock technician. I literally just went there, put on my safety lift belt, and offload trailers. That's what I did. It was a terrible job, absolutely terrible. And they treated you like garbage. Oh my God. Yeah. I've never treated with so much disrespect from not even just like the customers, but the employees. You know, like loss preventions would come out and just, you know, knock stuff on the floor and tell us to pick it up just because it was like straight out of a movie. So I worked there for about a year, and I'm driving home one night, and I see this little computer store like not even a mile from my house where I'm living, because I'm still living with my parents at the time. Not even a mile from my parents' house is this little shop right off the freeway, and a sign's going up. Like they're putting the sign on the building, says Mother's Board Computers. And I'm like, ooh. I'm like, what is this? You know, until then I had to drive all the way over to Tacoma, like 40 minutes to go to Egghead. You remember Egghead?
No, we never had Eggheads. No.
Oh, never had an Egghead? Okay, that was like the only place you could go with like software and hardware and stuff, right? Yeah. So now there's this little computer store, and I was like, it was the first one that I've seen anywhere close to anything. So I pull in there, and they're carrying stuff inside the building. I mean, literally, they're not open. They're just building the place out. And I walk into the front door, and the owner looks at me like kind of crazy, like, you know, who the hell are you? Because I'm like, I just walk into his store, and it's like not open. They're obviously building it. It's late at night. I think it was like 10 o'clock when I was driving back from Sears. So I walk in, and he starts talking to me, and I was like, oh, dude, I was excited. I saw you guys are putting a computer store here. This is something I'm really interested in. And the dude starts talking to me. His name's Tim, and he starts talking to me about, oh, yeah, you know, I've really always wanted to have like a computer store. So, you know, the opportunity presented itself, and here we are. He's like, hey, we're looking for technicians. Do you know anybody that would, you know, be interested? Because they're just opening. They're getting ready to hire. Yeah. And I was like, oh, me. You got it, like, hire me. And I told him I worked at Sears, and he looked at me and rolled his eyes like, oh, my God, you're not the one. So he extended me an offer. He told me I could work there after hours. I was doing the night shift at Sears. So he said that I could come in during the day and show them what I got. He didn't want a resume, he just wanted me to come in and actually work for free for a week. And he said if things worked out, that he would hire me and he'd put me on the payroll. And so I had built all my computers up until that point. After the LaserPal 286, everything, my 386, 33, my DX266, DX4100, Pentium, all that stuff was all built by me. Yeah. So I was very familiar with building computers back in a time where, like, you know, people were afraid to take the screw out of the back. Yeah. You know, and like installing a PC card required like a college degree. So I end up going in and blowing away all of his expectations, and he literally offers me a job for $1 over minimum wage. but the good news is he was only paying me minimum wage, so I saw that as like, oh my God, another $1 an hour. I mean, lowered expectations, right, Eli? Yeah. So they gave me the job, and I wanted to move out of my parents' house horribly, but I wasn't making enough at Sears to do it. So what I did is I worked both jobs. I worked at Mother's World Computers and I worked at Sears at night. And I'd put in 8 hours there, and then I'd go put in another 4 or 6 hours offloading trailers at night. And I did that for about 6 or 8 months, got enough money up to move out. A bunch of other stuff happened that was really crappy, like my house got ransacked and I got robbed and I had to move back to my parents' house for like a month or so. But I had to get away. I had to get away. So I ended up making enough money to move out and get my own little place in Bremerton, actually. And I did that for, I want to say, about a year and a half. I was with Mother's World Computers, and I worked myself up to a whopping $9.50 an hour, Eli. $9.50 an hour. Yeah. And my boss told me, Tim, same guy, told me that that's the most he could ever pay me because they were just a little mom-and-pop computer store. They weren't making a lot of money. He's like, you pretty much capped out here. He made that pretty abundantly clear to me that that's about as far as I can go. Which I was pretty pissed about because he was bringing in a contractor who was a programmer to do some stuff for him, and he's paying him like $30 an hour. Granted, it wasn't full time, but still, it's like, okay, why don't you pay me $30 an hour and I'll come like 2 hours a week. So what had happened was after he told me that, I was just thinking, God, where do I go from here? Right? I can't live well on $9.50. And a buddy of mine who had actually worked at the computer store that I hired. I ended up having to subsequently fire him, too, because he didn't ever come to work. He ended up getting a job at Microsoft as a contractor through a company, Volt, which was like this temp agency, right? Yeah. And so he calls me up one day, and we were kind of on bad terms, because, you fire your friend, he's going to be pissed, right? So we were kind of on bad terms. Plus, he was my roommate, and he moved out just to spite me and left me with all the bills. But he calls me out of the blue like 6 months later, and he's like, hey, do you want to work at Microsoft? And I'm like, what? So he's like, yeah, there's an interview coming up. All you got to do is be at this place at this time and do the interview for this Microsoft job. And I'm like, dude, thank you so much. I'm totally going to do this. I was excited. So I go back to work the next day and I tell my boss, I'm like, hey, listen, I got an interview in Microsoft. Like, hey, listen, this is good. And I was like, I need to take Friday off so I can go and do this interview. And keep in mind, I'm like service manager of the store now. I've worked myself up. I've bent over backwards for this guy and killed myself to build his business. And all he has to say to me is, if you want to go to that interview, then you're not taking this job seriously and you need to quit. Damn. So he went off. He literally said, if I go to that interview, I need to quit. So I was pissed. I looked at him and I said, okay, I quit. And I walked out of the back of the store and got my stuff and drove off. And I was panicking from that moment on because I think I had $500 to my name. That was my total assets and my checking, my saving, everything that I had was in there. And so the interview was up in Redmond, Washington, which was about a 3-hour drive from me at the time. And so it turns out that the interview was over 2 days. It was a 2-day interview thing. So I needed to stay in the area because I couldn't commute the 3 hours there and back both days and be sure that I was going to be there on time. So I ended up staying with some friends at a little apartment complex thing that they had there. And I went to both interviews. They canceled the second day. So this is after I already went up there and everything. They canceled the second day and they said, you have one interview. I was supposed to have 2 and they said I had 1. And I walked into it and I felt like I did a really good job in the interview, but I could tell that the guy was kind of put off by me a little bit. Like I was really high energy, like nothing right now. I was like bouncing off the wall. And I was the only guy there that wasn't in a suit and tie. Everybody else was wearing a suit and tie. I was wearing jeans and a T-shirt and like high tops. Dude, I didn't know, right? I was just a kid. So I go in there and I do this interview, and my recollection. There was 2 interviews that day, but the first one, the dude just ejected me. He's like, "I'm sorry, we're out of time." He gave me 5 minutes and he closed it down. Like I was like dead. His name was Caesar, and later on I met back with Caesar and let him know how I feel about that. But this Tim guy interviews me. We go for an hour. We go a little bit over, and he lays all this hardware out on a table because they were hiring for a hardware position. And that's why my friend thought I would be a good fit. And so he lays out all this hardware on the table, and I named every single thing, everything down to the enterprise level stuff, the fiber channel controllers, because I used to read all the PC magazines and everything. I knew everything about anything hardware back then, all the SCSI stuff. And so I go through, and he looks at me at the end of the interview, and he's like, you have an amazing knowledge of this stuff. He's like, I haven't seen anybody else quite have this level of knowledge. He's like, but I'm gonna be honest, you're a little much. He's like, you're a little much. He's like, you're a little hyper. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, I don't know if this is good or bad feedback. He's like, we'll be in touch. And he basically like tells me to leave the room. So I'm like, I don't know if I did a good job or not. So I walk out and they give me my packet after the interview, and the packet doesn't say Microsoft on it. It says Volt. And I was like, wait, what is this? Like, I was told this is an interview for a Microsoft job. No, it turns out my friend got me an interview for a contract position at Microsoft through Volt. And the only reason he did it is if they hired me, he gets a $500 finder's. So apparently we were still on bad terms. So I'm thinking to myself, I just quit my job to come interview for Microsoft, and now I'm not even interviewing for Microsoft. I'm interviewing for some no-name tech agency to work on site at Microsoft, but as a temp. And so I was like already kind of pissed off about that whole situation. So then we go back to the hotel room, or the little apartment room thing we were in. Some place called Homestead Village in Redmond. Look it up. Anyway, so we're staying there. We're talking about it. I'm there with my friend who has the job at Microsoft, and his cousin, Aaron, who also did the same interview loop that I did. So we both did the same exact interview loop, and Aaron gets a call. And they're like, oh, yeah, we want to offer you, $15 an hour or whatever starting. And Aaron's like, yeah, totally. I want the job. And so I'm waiting for my call. It didn't come. So a call. So I wait the next day, and I'm blowing money because I'm paying a third of the place to stay there. And yeah, nothing's free when you're all poor people. So I ended up waiting another day, still no call back. I call them, they say, oh, don't worry, you'll hear from us. You don't have to call us. And I'm panicking at this point. So I drive all the way back home, 3 hours. I go back to my previous employer, Tim, and I beg for my job back. I said, dude, this is the wrong thing. I didn't get my job. And Tim looks at me and he's like, I hope you learned a valuable lesson. I'm going to dock you $1 an hour pay. So now you're down to $8 an hour. And he gives me my job back, and he basically makes me beg for it. So I've got my job back. Now I'm making $1 less an hour. And I go home that night, and I'm just gutted. I'm just gutted. I'm happy that I got my job back, though, because I'm like, if I didn't even have enough money for one more month's rent. I would have been like back in my parents' house. So I go home, and I'm sitting there, and I wake up the next morning, and I get a call. And the call's from Volt. And Volt said, we would like to extend you an offer for $15 an hour. And I don't negotiate at all. Again, I'm kind of, new to this whole thing. I don't negotiate at all, and I'm like, well, $15 an hour is a shitload more than I'm making now. Wow. So they offer me the job. I literally, on my way to drive to sign my paper, so I have to drive 3 more hours back to sign my paperwork. I stop by the computer store and literally walk in, and I say, hey, Tim, Microsoft gave me the job. And I just turn around and walk out. I don't even talk to him about it or nothing, because I know he's going to be pissed. So you can imagine he's going to be pissed because I just begged for my job back. I got it back, planned for having me back, and now I'm gone again. So that's how I ended up getting the job in Microsoft. And I found out later on the only reason I got the job was because my boss, or my would-be boss, Bruce McCallum, he was the person that said he was looking for a hardware guy that had a lot of energy. And Tim was like, I think this guy has too much energy. And so he didn't recommend me to him the first day, but they didn't hire any of the other candidates, so they went and did a second pass over all the notes. And Bruce was like, here, just bring this Jerry guy in here. He seems like he's the most energetic out of the group. Let's give him a shot. And so that's where I got the job offer. And it was only for a contract for 1 year at $15 an hour. And then after Aaron and I got hired, we quickly found out in the first week that everybody else that got the same job that we did were getting paid $19 an hour. So Volt completely bent us over, and because the way these contract companies work, right, is they take a cut of the money Microsoft pays them, right? Yeah. So Microsoft gets the same money for all the people in that position, gives Volt the same amount of money, and then Volt gives us less money. It's the biggest crapshoot in the galaxy. But that was how I got my in at Volt, and then it took me 8 months of doing hardware stuff, and I automated everything in the lab that we did. And they didn't think I could program because I never put that on my resume, but it was just a hobby I had. I knew I was doing Borland, C, C++, Turbo Pascal, and so I didn't put it on there because I was like, I don't have a college education, so I don't want them asking me questions about it, so I didn't put it down. But once they realized I could do it, they asked me if I wanted to do a full-time interview loop 8 months later after I got there. And I aced the full-time interview loop, and that's when they extended me an offer for a blue badge, basically a full-time Microsoft employee, and they bought my contract from Volt.
Wow, okay.
15 years of just climbing and climbing and climbing and doing my thing after. So that's the very long-winded story there, Eli.
So then how did you go from hardware? Because when you left, you were hardcore coder. So how did you go from hardware to coding? The basic story of it. Yeah.
The basic story. Yeah, let's go another hour. No, sorry. I'm a little amped up right now. So the short of it is, when I started in the lab, my job was titled HCT Fix, Hardware Compatibility Testing Fix. There was one position at Microsoft that held this title, and it was an experimental position. And my goal was to bring all of the servers that died online, replace basic things like hard drives, memory, network controllers, stuff like that, bring the systems back online so that they could join the test effort. Because before my position existed, they would have to literally pull these servers, stick them in a box, send them back to Dell, HP, all these companies. And then the companies would repair them and send them back, and the turnaround was like a week or two. And so these systems, and they would die constantly because our entire charter for this lab was to run the hardware at 100% 24 hours a day to do stability testing for Windows. And so stuff was dying. So my job was come to work every morning, go to my bench, then literally walk computer to computer, 600 terminals in this giant lab, and find computers that are no longer responding to user input, power them down, take them back to my desk, diagnose them, fix them with all my surplus parts they gave me, and then get them back into service. And that's all I did every day. Well, the programming element came in when I started writing software during my free time to monitor the lab, because I got sick and tired of walking around and checking 600 computers every morning. Yeah. You might imagine that was the most mundane thing I've ever done in my life. So I wrote a piece of software called LabMon, and all it did was I had a computer at the front of the lab that had a screen, and it was all ASCII graphics, no fancy VGA or nothing. And all it did was show the rows in the lab and the computers, and it would send a ping to each computer every 10 minutes. And if the computer stopped responding to the ping, I would know that there was something wrong with that computer, and I could go check it out. That way, when I came in the morning, I would have a list of 5 or 10 computers to go check instead of 600. Okay. And so I wrote that software. I showed it to my boss, and he was just like floored. Like, yeah, back then, like, there wasn't a lot of software developers when I started, so it was like little things were magical to these people. Like the fact that I wrote this thing in like C++ in a weekend and it was monitoring the whole lab, they were just like beside themselves, like, wow, all these years we've been having people walk around and push buttons. We didn't know that you could do this. That changed years later when we started getting better educated programmers. Yeah. But so I write this piece of software, and my boss was like, "Oh, that's really cool. Like, what else do you think you could do?" And so we talked, and he's like, "Well, can you automate any other tasks that we do in the lab that are monotonous?" Well, up until that point, to install the computers in the lab, we would go around and put media, because we had to do media installs because we were testing the end user scenario. Yeah. So you'd have to put a CD in each one of these computers, pop it in, reboot the thing, wait there, hit the space bar, run through and do the install. And so what I did is I wrote them an INF script that you could burn onto the CD, and we gave it to the burn lab. And the media, now you could just drop it in the drive, put it in power cycle the machine, and walk away, and it would go through all of the same steps that the user would to do the install.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah.
And the best part about it was I actually used Microsoft technology that was baked into the product to do it. It's just nobody there had the skills to implement it. like had the skills to program it, but nobody had the skills to actually implement it, which I thought was hilarious. So that ended up saving so much time in the lab that we were able to take on massively more testing. Like everything about the lab, the efficiency went through the roof. My boss was really happy. And so I wrote a couple other simple programs and little scripts to like diagnose things. I ended up writing automation that managed all the kernel debuggers in the lab. So basically all the computers are connected via serial to a debugger itself. And it monitors the computer. And if code breaks, it'll basically halt the execution on that computer, and the developer can actually remote in and check it. Well, that process before was all manual, where if the computer broke or froze up, the end user would have to go to the debugger, fire up a session, get it synced, fix these things called symbols, and then send it to the developer. And I automated that entire process so that when the computer broke, it would immediately notice that it was broken. It would open up the session. It would sync, fix everything, and then send an email automatically to the developer that owned the component and say, come investigate this.
Cool.
And so that's when I found that automation was my niche. I automated the hell out of everything. My boss was like, this is badass. And that's what led me to the interview loop for a software development engineer instead of just a software engineer, which I was. That was my job title when I was doing the Bolt thing.
Okay. So did they, when you get hired for that, did they send you through training or school, or was it all self-learning?
Everything up until that point was self-learning. But the nice thing is, once you become a full-timer, at least used to, not anymore with the Satya Nadella way of things, when you were hired full-time at Microsoft, you were given a budget every year towards education. Huh. And you could spend that budget to go to an external college if you wanted to and do courses at a college. Or you could spend it to do classes on the campus, the Redmond campus. There would be classes always going on in all the buildings that you go around to, like how to program, how to debug, advanced programming, beginning basics of this, XML, XAML, all this stuff. And so I started just maxing out the budget, going and taking all of these classes that I could. I mean, I was literally like going to probably 4 to 5 classes a week, probably spending half my work day in an educational setting for the first like several months that I worked as a full-time employee. And I ended up ramping up and becoming an expert in like several technologies, including database architecture and stuff. I got really interested in SQL, did tons of stuff with SQL Server. And so, yeah, no, the education came internally to Microsoft. But to this day, I still don't hold any formal degree, not even an MCSE.
Really?
And I was a senior software developer at Microsoft, which is one under a principal developer.
Really?
So yeah, I climbed. Yeah, I'm kind of the guy that crawled through the cracks because at the end of my career, after 15 years, I was actually writing very, very high-end, patentable automation harnesses for Microsoft. That 14 of them are still in use today, even in my absence.
Wow.
And none of that came from a formal education. It all came from resources that Microsoft had on site.
So if you go there, and we'll talk about how you left Microsoft in a bit, but 15 years in a tech company seems like a really long time, especially when you think about the period of time you were doing it. So, like, what was your reason for staying with Microsoft? Like, because like so many people, you do you do 3 years, you hop somewhere, you may come in and out of a company, but is it very common to stay 15 years with a company like Microsoft?
You know what? Surprisingly, it is pretty common.
Really?
A lot of the people that I worked with, well, actually, I should rephrase that. It's really common for the people that are doing amazing things. If you're not doing amazing things, then you get out. You run as fast as you can, because then there's like a big gun sight on your forehead and you know it's coming. So you just get out and go do something else. Damn. For me, what kept me going at Microsoft, and I was passionate, I would say all the way up until my last year. The last year, things were getting pretty rough. Ballmer was kind of running the business into the ground. Satya stepped in and decided to just cut and basically repurpose the entire company. And so that last year I wasn't too passionate anymore. But up until that point, I was super passionate because I was getting a lot of rewards for the things that I was doing. And it kept me passionate. Okay. Like up here on the wall, standing next to me, I have something called a Hero Award. They only gave out like 50 of them. It's hand-signed in ink by Jim Alchin, Steve Ballmer, Will Poole, and Bob Muglia. And all the old timers, they're all long gone now. Yeah. But that was delivered to me with a check for $50,000.
Holy shit!
And that was because I just saved the company like $100 million with something I stayed up all night through a weekend developing. Wow. And made work. And I have 3 Gold Star Awards, which they discontinued that program at Microsoft too. Which is if you do something that's so far outside your job description that literally saves the company or changes the direction of the company, they literally just give you a massive check and a plaque basically that says, oh, you did this. And I got 3 of those in addition to the Hero Award in the 15 years I was there. And so it was those things. It was the constant recognition for doing good work that kept me there. Yeah. Honestly, like I would kill myself for that company almost all the way up until the end. Like I would stay up 24 hours a day drinking Red Bull and coffee to solve problems because I really enjoyed it and I was really passionate and the company was really good at rewarding its people for doing amazing work. But like I said, in the end, that all started changing. They discontinued the Gold Star program. They started doing a stack ranking system where they didn't rank you against yourself anymore. They ranked you against your peers. Okay. And the thing that was really damaging about it was if you had a rock star team, which we actually did, you would have to kill off one of the rock stars every year and replace him with an idiot. Satisfy the system. And that's and Microsoft really just started going downhill. Like, for instance, we had a team that was amazing. Everybody on the team was filing hundreds of bugs a year. Everybody on our team was actually writing software, whether it be like web engine UIs for processing data or like my case, automation to run thousands and thousands of user scenarios on the computer. Every one of us was doing noteworthy work. So at the end of the year, they'd roll around and say, okay, you can only give out 2 good grades, 1 mediocre grade, and 1 screw you, go to hell grade. And you're like, well, what if all 4 of my people are equal levels? And they're like, nope, doesn't work that way. You have to give one of them this bad score. And so my boss, every year, we'd all go into the room. We'd be looking at each other like, okay, who has to take the beating this year?
Damn.
And so we didn't like that model at all, and that's what kind of killed my passion, because up until that point, you could have a team where everybody on your team got an amazing grade. Mm-hmm. But you were basically just ranked against you and your job. If you performed above what your job required, you were good. But in the new model, even if you stayed up every single night working as hard as you possibly could, if one of the other guys on your team was more of a buddy with the manager or had a better skill set and worked harder, he would always get that grade, and then you were screwed no matter how hard you worked. So like where you'd be a rock star on one team, you're an idiot on another. And that whole culture of that just kind of killed it for me.
So then to get where you did, do you think, it's a whole question. Is it intelligence? Is it skill? Is it drinking a shit ton of Red Bull and coffee? Like, what do you think was the main driver for your success?
Honestly, for my success, it was having a unique skill set that nobody else did at the time. Like, my hobby of computers at such an early age put me in an instinctual skill set that nobody else had. Like, even the developers of Microsoft that were all formally trained from college, they would struggle with things that I wouldn't, just because I've already made every single mistake you could and learned from it like firsthand. So I think in the beginning, that's what gave me a leg up on everybody, was that nobody was treating it as a hobby. Everybody thought computers were just a fad back then. Everybody was like, oh, that's not a real job. You're never going to make any money doing that. And I was like, screw it. That's all I did. And so that gave me a leg up. But what carried me through and kept me climbing was the puzzle of it all, the needing to solve problems. Yeah. And the passion behind it that I had. If you're passionate about something, I would say that that's the number one thing. If you want to order the things, I think passion actually goes above skill. And I'll tell you why. Because if you have passion for something, you will kill yourself to learn everything you can about that thing. If you have that skill, you have that skill at whatever level that skill exists. And if you don't have the passion to keep excelling, all you have is that, and that's going to die. It's more important for you to have the ability to keep learning and that passion to keep learning than it is just to have one fixed, decent skill set in one fixed point in time.
That makes sense.
And so when I interviewed people, I always looked for that. I looked for an energy, and I looked for a thirst for knowledge. Like, whenever a lot of people conduct interviews and they're like, you cannot search online for the answer. I actually didn't. When I conducted interviews, I said, you can search online for the answer all you want, but you can't copy and paste. You can't plagiarize anything. But you can search for anything to get an understanding of a problem. And you'd be surprised how many people I would have that would literally go search the internet, get an understanding, and actually completely solve my problem faster than the person that just tried to figure it out from their book smarts.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you have an ability to find information on the internet and you're really, really efficient at knowing what to trust and what not to trust and how to understand things and build on that, oh God, that'll take you anywhere. Now, getting an employer to realize that in the beginning is a little tricky without the accolades these days. But back when I got hired at Microsoft, they were literally anybody that they could type 100 words per minute and knew what a compiler was. It was like, get in here.
Damn. So then what happened then? I mean, if you're so happy and you're making money and Microsoft loves you, why are you not still at Microsoft?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I guess they decided one day that they didn't want me or 2,400 of my friends. So that was a dark day. So as you probably know if you've seen the video. So a little over 2 years ago, probably closer to 2.5 years ago, Microsoft, I go to work. Everything's good. Matter of fact, I just had my review, and my review was fantastic. They gave me a huge bonus, and I was good to go. I was promoted. I was level 64 senior SDED. And so I go into work, and everybody's out in the hallways, out in front of their office. Everybody's really nervous. And they're like, we just found out that all the managers got laid off that morning. All of them, including my manager of 15 years, was laid off. And so I go into the office, and I talk to Bruce, and Bruce is like beside himself because he didn't see this coming at all.
Wow.
He's laid off, and then we get an email. Everybody starts yelling out in the hallway, hey, go check your computer. We get an email that says there's a mandatory meeting. If you're receiving this email, there's a mandatory meeting you must report to. You cannot miss this meeting. If you are sick today, you need to basically get your ass into work and meeting. I mean, it was like, and it was all like red, as flagged as you can flag a thing in Outlook. Yeah. And so we go to this thing, and everybody's being shuffled into the doors of the conference center on the Redmond campus. And security is preventing us from standing around and talking, which, usually before you enter a meeting, everybody sits around and talks. Mm-hmm. And they're actively walking around, and security is breaking up conversations and telling us we need to go be seated now. In 15 years at Microsoft, I've never, ever had Microsoft security so much as bark in my direction. Like Microsoft security always treated employees really, really good. Like literally, you could be skateboarding out in the middle of a building, and the security would pull up, and you just show them your blue badge, and they'd be like, "Have a nice day," and they'd leave. They wouldn't try to stop you from doing anything. Flying RC airplanes and stuff, they didn't care. But today was different. They're like shuffling us into this room. We walk into the room, and there's probably about 500 of us in there. And in the back of the room are a bunch of people standing behind tables that are covered in sheets. This is weird. This is so weird. In a tone of screams, "You're all getting fired." So we were all sitting down. Our skip level manager walks to the front of the room, the organization director, and he stands up and he's like, "I'm really sorry, but I have to report now that all of your positions are no longer necessary. Collect your packets at the back of the room. Today is your last day." And I'm like shitting myself. I'm like, what's going on? I'm like looking around the room, looking at other people. They're looking at me. We're all like, what is going on here? I literally just got promoted. Why am I being laid off? And so what had happened was that was referred to as wave 1. There was 5 more waves that followed. Actually, it might be up to 6 now. And in that one wave, they laid off, I think it was a little over 2,400 employees. And one of the layoffs was my entire division. So everything at my level, one level above me, and one level above that was completely annihilated. The Windows test division was gone. Microsoft decided they wanted to go a new direction with testing and have the end users test things. So they no longer needed an in-house test team. So they annihilated the whole test team. And the only people that remained on the test team were the H-1 visas. Basically the outsourced employees, because Microsoft made a commitment to employ them for a certain period of time. So they left them, and everybody that was a local full-time employee was laid off for the most part. And so they just used them as the transitional step to basically bring the new team up to speed, which was the Windows Phone team, which stepped in and became the new test organization for the three pillars, which are Microsoft Windows, Xbox, and Phone. They merged the 3 teams together, so we became the redundant element, and they just threw us out.
Damn.
And I'll be honest, I mean, they gave us an amazing severance package. I didn't have to work for a year after that. They gave me basically my full pay for a year. Go home. You're done. And they extended our insurance for 1 year. And so they gave us time. So as far as layoffs go, it was a good layoff in that sense. But what pissed me off is I was a career guy, right? I was there forever. I have a huge record of doing things that are above and beyond. I'm a top 5% contributor, which you basically at your review, they tell you where you stack rank in the company as far as every single employee in the company, including executive management. Which bucket are you in? And I was in the 5% bucket, which you'd think would make me untouchable.
Yeah.
But it didn't, because Microsoft didn't want the liability of targeting specific people and laying them off, so they wrote a computer algorithm to do it. And the computer algorithm took into account the amount of years in the company and which my pay was incredibly high compared to other people that were at my same level because of what I had done and my achievements and everything. But the computer was like, this guy costs a lot. We don't really need him anymore because we got rid of the entire test organization. Punt him. So, and I will say that I was lucky that they did that, because Wave 2 didn't get nearly as good of a severance package, and Wave 3 didn't even get a severance package.
Damn.
So Microsoft, I was lucky to be in the first wave, because if I was in any of the other waves, I would have been significantly more screwed. And Microsoft did offer me a job back 7 times in the first year. They wanted to put me in Office team, the Xbox team twice, something to do with the HoloLens project, because they saw the VR stuff I was doing with YouTube. And I turned him down on all of it, because it was one of those things where it's like, I saw where Satya was taking the company. A lot of people agree with what he's doing. Yeah. I'm not one of them. I agree that he's basically turning the company into Apple as much as he can. Yeah. He's trying to Tim Cook-eyes everything. Yeah. And I don't agree with that. I liked Microsoft's mantra, which is, where can we go today? And we have unlimited money, so we're just going to literally fund the vision of every single person on this campus and patent every single idea on Earth until we're the juggernaut. And they abandoned that. They decided that was no longer the way to go. And they wanted to get out of desktop operating systems. That was clear. I mean, all the company meetings that I went to in the last 2 years that I was there, it was clear that Windows 10 was the end game. Microsoft didn't want to make any more operating systems. They wanted to focus on cloud and services and selling services. And that's why you're seeing so much open source and cross-platform stuff coming out of Microsoft now, is because Microsoft, they don't want to make operating systems anymore. They want Windows 10 to just be the last operating system they make. Focus on everything else. Windows 10 will eventually die. You know, say Apple or Linux jumps to the front run. They don't care, because all their services are compatible across the board. And that's the end game. That's my personal opinion. with everything I've seen as the end game is that and that's why the first wave hit the operating system team and not the Windows Phone team. Because honestly, why would you not lay off the Windows Phone team? They're like no market share. Even today, they're horrible. They like destroyed an entire like city overseas because everybody was employed by Nokia happily, and then Microsoft buys like the most successful cell phone company in the world and destroys it overnight. I'm not bitter at all, Eli.
No. So would you ever go back to Microsoft then? Would they have to change? No, really?
Oh, no. Well, actually, here I'm going to qualify that with one thing. If Bill Gates himself comes back, which we know he won't,
Yeah.
But let's say in bizarro world, Bill Gates comes back, dethrones Satya Nadella, and takes the CEO position back on the board, and starts giving an active shit in what the company is doing.
Yeah.
I would go back in a heartbeat because Bill Gates knew what he was doing. Through the first half of my career when he was running the company, he made the right calls. He did really, really good work. Only when Ballmer went up to CEO, when Gates left the company, did the company start shifting towards the profit. We don't care about anything else. Yeah. That started the downfall. And now we're in the Satya Nadella, which is cut the company down as small as humanly possible and let's rebuild in the services and cloud space. And because we don't need 120,000 employees anymore. And so if Gates came back and actually grabbed the reins or at least appointed somebody to CEO that had the same type of vision he did, then I would consider it. But as of right now, no. But will I go back to an IT job eventually? Yeah. I'm still entertaining that because Google offers me jobs all the time. Google loves me. They have a Kirkland campus up here and a Seattle campus. Yeah. And they both send me mails all the time asking me if I want to come in and interview for positions in VR, although I think their VR thing died. So I'm glad I didn't take that job, Eli. Like, literally, they extended me the job, and it's like 2 months later, they shut down their whole virtual reality thing, and I was like, ooh, I didn't take that, bro. But Amazon's made me a bunch of offers. I don't know if I'd want to go work for Amazon. I've heard that that's kind of a death march. Google's a great company, though. Like, Google would probably be the company that I would be most willing to go back and sit down on. But I've also gotten a lot of job offers from some of the smaller companies and startups that are in Seattle. Yeah. And I kind of keep in the back of my mind. I'm like, this YouTube thing probably won't last forever. And if I want to go do something else, those options are still open to me. Yeah. So, but Microsoft, nah.
So then, okay. So how long have you been doing YouTube then for?
Oh God, probably actively about a little over 3.5 years.
Okay.
But inactively, my channel's been alive for like 8 or 9 years.
8 or 9 years. So then what got you, so when you got laid off, that's when you started spending more time on YouTube. But like, what got you, because it's always interesting to hear like why people started doing YouTube videos, especially for me, because I basically started this as a business. So it's curious when I see so many people that did it for a passion. Like, what got you to start doing YouTube videos back in the day?
This is the funny thing is I started making YouTube videos to test a feature on something.
Yeah, really?
Like not even joking. Like, actually, I still have it sitting up on top of my 100,000 subscriber plaque from YouTube. It's my Flip Video HD. Remember those little things?
Yeah.
So it's a little like I got it from like Circuit City way back in the day, and I brought it home. And one of the features on it was it can upload directly to YouTube. Like, you record a video, you plug it in with the USB cable, and it'll automatically upload a video to YouTube. The software even created your channel for you and everything. Like, and I was like, oh, this seems pretty cool. So I shot a little mouse review. It was a little Microsoft Sidewinder mouse. It was their first Sidewinder mouse that they made. So I shoot this little video with the Flip Video. It's like 480p, or it might even been 360p. It was a garbage camera. It says it's HD, but I don't find anything HD about it. So I tell it to upload the video, and I go share it with some of my friends, and they go watch it, and I think the video got like, I want to say like 20 views or something like that in 6 months. It was nothing. Yeah. But still, 20 people watched it, and I thought that was amazing because I only shared it with like 5 people. So I was like, oh, there's 15 other people out there or 20 other people out there that watch this video. Yeah. And so that kind of got me going. So then I made another video, which was another product review where you didn't see my face. I'm completely behind the camera. And it got a couple more views, but still nothing I would call amazing, like 65 views. Yeah. And after that, I just kind of lost interest in it. I didn't make anything else for like years. Yeah. Like literally years, my channel was just dead. And what really kickstarted it when everything really took off was me and my friend decided we wanted to build crazy computers for home. Okay. So we built a computer. I think I paid a little over $10,000 in parts to build liquid-cooled beast that I still have today. I'm actually selling on Friday to another live streamer. And I built this beast of a computer about 4 years ago. and 24 fans, 2 radiators, multiple pumps, it was so far over the top. It was crazy. And it was built in a Case Labs case, which is the size of a mini fridge. And so I built this computer, and then my friend built the duplicate system. We both built them together. And he had the idea. I was already using a TV as a computer screen, which back in the day, like, nobody did that, right? There was like one other guy at Microsoft that gave me the idea. So I go buy this Westinghouse plasma screen, and I stick it on there. So now I got my huge computer, my huge screen. And one day I'm at Costco with my friend Greg, who has the same computer as I do. And he's like, hey, I want to do a big screen on my computer too. So he's like, I'm going to get this like 46-inch Samsung doohickey. It's 1080p at Costco. So we go to Costco, and he wants to buy one. So that I'm like, I'm going to buy 3 of them. So then he puts 3 on his cart, and it's funny, it's hilarious. We're driving a cart around the store with six televisions on it. It looks like we're outfitting a sports bar, right? So we pull up to the checkout, and this is just completely we didn't plan this. This is just all just happening on the spot. And I get home, and I plug in all 3 of these giant screens, and they don't fit on my desk, so I have to go basically steal the dining room table, which I still have here today. And I move it up, and I lag bolts to the wall, and I stick these screens on it. And I'm just like, I sit back, and I'm just like, oh my God, what have I done? I have 3 46-inch screens connect this. And this is back when, like, now it's pretty common. You see this kind of setup all the time on YouTube. Back when I did it, I would say that I was pretty much the only guy online that was doing anything like this. And so I was like, you know what? I really need to make a video of this room. And I'd already done some videos of the computer build, and they did really well, actually. I started getting like a couple hundred views, Eli. So I ended up, once I got the room completely built, I have a racing simulator, I had 3D printers in here, all kinds of stuff. And this is the big turning point for me, was I do this room tour. And I go through and I voice over the whole thing, and I do it's completely different than any video I've done before. I spend tons of time on it, like a week. And I crank this video out, and I upload it, and it starts getting hundreds of thousands of views.
Damn. Okay.
And that's what sparked my interest. Up until that point, it was just a hobby where I was just uploading videos, like, not a lot of engagement, not a lot of stuff going on. Yeah. But that was the turning point. That was the video that I uploaded that it got so much viewership, it made me realize, wait a second, I have something kind of unique here. Right? And even to this day, I don't know, I think the video is over 3 million views now. Damn. So after that video, then I was like, wow, people are actually really interested in this stuff. So I started doing more 3D printing videos. Again, nobody had 3D printers at the time, so I had my little plywood Ultimaker sitting over here cranking things out. Yeah. And those videos got hundreds of thousands of views. And so 3D printing became a big part of my channel. Gaming back then was a big part. It's since died off, but I want to bring it back. Yeah. But gaming, I do this gaming thing where I'd have the surround set up and the camera behind me so everybody could see what it looked like. And I do it with the racing simulator. And the videos started getting really consistent viewership, and my audience was starting to grow exponentially. Yeah. I mean, I think in the first year I had like 10,000 subscribers, and to me that was like amazing. Like even today it's like 10,000 subscribers. Wow, I can't believe 10,000 people watch what I'm doing. And then over the next year it went up to like 150,000. And then when Microsoft laid me off and I started just doing it full time, there was a time where I was pumping out like 3 videos a day. Like I don't do that anymore, but like there was a period of like 6 months where I was just pumping out like 1 to 3 videos a day, just cranking it out. And during that time, I want to say in a year and a half or 2 years, I went up over 500,000. Yeah. And so my growth was like, if you look at my growth trend, it's like up a little, and then just boom to the sky. Yeah. Making all this 3D printing content and everything. And that's what really, really got me engaged, is that I had this audience and it was growing steadily and people wanted to watch what I was producing. And at the time, I was buying everything myself. I didn't have companies sending me anything. I built my computer because I had the Microsoft job. I was making good money. I bought 3D printers. I bought all the mixer boards, all the camera equipment that I reviewed, all the peripherals I reviewed, all the cell phones, tablets I reviewed. All that stuff was stuff I bought. Damn. But the channel, I went back and did an estimate. It was over $100,000 that I had put into my channel over 4 years. Damn. And so obviously now that I didn't have a job, I needed to make a living. Yeah. And I was already making some ad revenue from YouTube, which, is diminishing day by day with the new YouTube model, everybody with ad blockers and stuff like that. Yeah. But so I had to find different ways to monetize, and that's when I started entertaining that these companies wanted to send me stuff to review. So I was like, oh, sure, if it's something I like. But that's my rule to this day, is I still will not review anything that it's not something that I'm interested in myself.
Makes sense. Okay. Yep.
Like, that company's messaging me all the time. It's like, oh, hey, we want you to review like this, tablet stand. And I'm like, well, your particular tablet stand doesn't do anything I really care for.
Yeah.
Some viewers might care for it, but I don't care for it, so I don't think it'd be a good fit for me.
Yeah.
So I only communicate with companies that have products that I care about, that I actually would like to have. And they started sending me products, and I started reviewing that. And then I started, doing some pre-rolls here and there for companies to make additional revenue.
Okay.
And I started to realize that, if I can build this to where I have enough steady sources of revenue coming in, I'm not just depending on YouTube by itself, I can have a business here.
Yeah. Yep.
This can be my living. Because up until that point, I realized I had a severance package from Microsoft. So the first year that I was away from Microsoft was pretty much already paid for. So I didn't have to be profitable that first year.
Yeah.
And the second year, I wasn't even really profitable if you take into account the IRS and the audit and all the stuff I had to learn and all the horrible lessons. But it's one of those things where it's like I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I could see that this could be profitable. Nowhere near what I was making at Microsoft. I mean, I won't even tell you what I was making at Microsoft, but it was a lot. It was a lot more than you'd ever imagine, probably by a factor of 2 or 3. And so do I miss that? Yes, I miss that money horribly, Eli. It was nice to just know that every 2 weeks this massive amount of money would just show up into my account, and all the taxes was handled, and at the end of the year, the IRS actually paid me back. I miss all those things horribly. But I did realize that this could be a business, and I do like that I have creative control over what I do.
Yeah.
And that's what really, really got me passionate about the YouTube thing, was the audience first, that people cared about what I did.
Yeah.
And the secondary was, if I play my cards right and I do things the right way, I should be able to make a living doing this.
Yeah.
But I make no illusions. I don't believe that this is going to last forever. I don't believe that I'm going to be making my living making YouTube videos, 10 years into the future. I believe that this is just, another step in my life that's going to transition to something else, whether that be software development for Opulent Studios, which is my little game developing house, or, transitioning and doing something completely different that's off the rails, because I already went from software developer to video producer. I mean, how freaking weird, topsy-turvy can you get beyond that?
Yeah.
But there's always something new. But that's what got me passionate about it. And today I'm struggling a little bit with that passion, because as soon as you do it as a job, and you probably know this as well as I, as you do it as a job, you start to lose that little bit of gleam in your eye that you had for just, this is a hobby. Yeah. I can just say and do whatever I want, whenever I want, and no consequences.
Yeah.
And that's simply just not true anymore. And it's unfortunate.
Well, but how do you come up with your content? Because you seem like, it doesn't seem like you're that formulaic. Like Linus Tech Tips, that motherfucker has an algebraic equation. Like, you don't, like, when I...
No, you literally have a scientific graphing calculator, like, telling them what to do. Yeah, no. And I have huge respect for Linus, because he's running an empire. Not a little business, an empire. My passion is what keeps me going, but I have no plan. Really? Eli, there is no plan here. Literally, I haven't made a video in over a week, which people are telling me, like, oh, God, it's the dumbest thing you can do. I've done it before. I just do stuff that I want to do when I want to do it. And that's not the best model for a business by a long shot. It isn't. Yeah. But some weeks I'm more engaged than others. Yeah. And I need to change that. I've already taken steps. Like, I hired a brand manager now. So I have a person who's actually a good friend of mine, who now goes and approaches businesses and stuff that I'm interested in to figure out, do they want pre-rolls on videos? What's their, do they want to do some advertisement? Do they just want their products reviewed? Stuff like that, because I found that I wasn't good at it. I'm not good at it. You have to realize, in life, do what you're good at, and then pay everybody else to do the stuff you're not good at. Yeah. And I think that's a good mantra to live by. So I started adapting that and bringing some people in to help me there. But it's like, my video editing style is so weird and backwards and not like anybody else's, that every attempt I've made to have somebody else edit my content has ended in failure. So I'm going to be my own video editor. When I shoot video, I sometimes shoot with a crew when I'm on location doing like drone shoots and stuff like that. But I'll be honest, I'm always the most passionate and comfortable when I'm just sitting in my room, just mano a mano with a camera and doing my thing. Completely unscripted, unrehearsed, just turn it on and go. But the problem with that model is some days you're on and some days you're not.
Yeah. But do you notice, like, because that's what you hear a lot of people say, is they're all like, oh, if you don't put out content, everything is going to go to hell. And again, one of the weird things for me is I basically phoned it in for a year and a half and was still getting very nice checks. Like, do you actually get those spikes with your work, or is it more stable?
It's stable to a degree. Like for instance, if I'm creating videos regularly, I will notice that I'll be making about double the ad revenue than I am if I'm doing anything. Yeah, like
okay.
hey Eli, we've looked at your numbers before. You're an anomalous bastard. Okay,
Yes.
your viewer retention is like so far above what should be obtainium. Like somehow you attracted an audience that not a single person in your audience has ADHD. Every single one of them can sit down and just listen to your buttery radio voice for hours on end. Unfortunately, I don't have that. My viewer interaction on my videos and my retention is probably about 6 to 7 minutes. So I've had to work really, really hard to try to bring my long-winded videos down because I was producing videos that were 45 minutes to an hour long. Yeah. And if you keep doing that over and over again and people are only watching 7 minutes of your video, YouTube starts to weight you down. And there's a bunch of algorithms that I've had to learn and understand how YouTube treats content and how they create search engine, how they work out who gets to the top of search engines and who doesn't. That's all, a separate thing that you have to keep an eye on. But as far as the revenue stream, it doesn't, the basic, like if I just stop doing everything, I still barely make enough money to get by.
Damn.
Like, okay. So if I just completely just stop making videos, just my old videos, just floating as they are right now, I'll make enough money to basically just pay my most basic bills and everything like that and keep me going forward. Okay. I'm not going and doing anything else. But if I'm creating content regularly, I find that there are huge spikes there. Like when I'm creating content regularly, I can make as much as twice as much just from the ad revenue.
Really?
And from the video. So and that's what makes it hard is because I can only make content when I want to make content. Huh. And somehow the money does not motivate me. That's the thing is money should motivate you. Yeah. If you're a normal person and you're not lying to yourself, money should motivate you. And I'm trying to figure out why that's not the case. I think I've almost become complacent with knowing that there's enough there, at least for now, to take care of things. Yeah. That I don't worry about it. But the truth is, if you don't worry about it and you don't make content at least semi-regularly, your channel will lose ground. Yeah. It will. Now the rate at which it loses ground depends on your audience and the type of content and what replay value your content has to new users that are discovering it and stuff like that. Like Eli, you do a lot of the kind of deep thought and educational stuff. Yeah. That has huge replay value. It doesn't matter, you're not talking about, an iPhone 7, for instance, where, the iPhone 8 comes out 3 months later and nobody's ever going to search for the iPhone 7 video again. Yeah. You're doing a deep thought on, like, how networking protocols work. And it's like the fundamental basic knowledge of how they work that'll still be the same in 100 years. Yeah, okay. So it's got a lot of replay value. My content, some of it has that and some of it doesn't. And the mixture is not calculated at all. Some, like the Codegasm stuff I do. Obviously, that's not going to be super long-lived, even though somehow that became the most popular thing on my channel for a period. It's people aren't going to be programming .NET 4.5 in 100 years. They're just not. So those videos have limited replayability. Now the videos that I do that are more about my personal life and my weight and my struggles and stuff like that, those are going to have infinite replayability throughout time because the people are going to have the same problems in 100 years as they do now. Yeah. So there's always going to be somebody trying to find that. So when you're making content, I guess you can kind of think in the back of your head, what kind of replay value does this have moving forward that people watch? And also, does it make you happy making that kind of content? Are you making enough money to justify you doing it? Are you so passionate about it you don't care how much money you make? Yeah. The side that I land on more than I wished I did because I'm like, you know what, I'm going to make this content. Even though I know this video is only going to get 40,000 views, I don't care. I'm still making it. And I do that a lot. And I would say from a professional perspective, that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. So I wouldn't recommend it.
So then you talk about getting a brand manager, but if you look at Social Radar, you are part of some MCN. Isn't that supposed to be part of the package?
No, the MCNs, gosh, okay. So MCNs are good for precisely one thing, and that is legal support. That is it. There is no other reason to have an MCN. They do these things like Fullscreen does these things called guerrilla campaigns and stuff where they'll come at you and be like, oh, we'll pay you a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 to go and promote this product or service. But it's 9 out of 10 times it's something you'd never want to promote. It doesn't align with you. It's just them out there just hunting brands and trying to stick them on people. And so I haven't done really anything with my MCN on that level. Okay. They also offer a lot of content stuff that you can use, but the problem with that is when you leave the MCN, then they technically own the rights to that content that they gave you rights to in the first place, so it's basically a way to tie you into them forever. Okay. So I don't use any of that stuff. I don't use their media library that's licensed, nothing. Yeah. So the only thing I use my MCN for and I pay them 10% for, which is more than generous, is legal support. And one thing that they are good at, MCNs, is you'll find if you don't have an MCN, which you don't, you're just AdSense straight up, right?
Yeah, I've just got my YouTube partner. Yeah, straight with that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you had a problem not too long ago where you got taken down.
Yeah, I had the issue, yeah.
I remember the video. You were like, screw this! Screw you, YouTube, I ain't never coming back. You took your gerbs. And the thing is, if you were with an MCN, you would have been protected from that. Like, the MCN would have been like, oh, this guy makes us money. Yeah. So we're going to go directly to our YouTube guy and fight this and get it overturned almost instantly. So that's the one thing that MCNs are actually good for. And the thing is, you'd think YouTube would have more of a vested interest in you because they take like 40%, right? Yeah. You'd think YouTube would have the higher vested interest in you than the MCN, but it's not true. YouTube is just so massive and so underpowered that it's like they won't even know that something happened to you, until a year after it happens. So the nice thing I like about having an MCN is if a video gets flagged inappropriately, or somebody flags my channel, or somebody goes and duplicates my channel, which these things all happen on a weekly basis, it seems like. Yeah. I just shoot a quick email off to them. They reply within a couple of hours and say, okay, it's taken care of, or it's being taken care of, and then everything's back to life as usual. Yeah. Okay. And then keep good scanning. So the 2 times that I went back to AdSense, my channel had a copyright flag, a bunch of videos got taken down, massive monetization across the board. As soon as I go back to the MCN, I don't have these problems anymore.
Okay, wow. Yeah. So you talk about, like, you figure YouTube will probably blow up at some point. Have you thought about, like, when you think about your profession right now, are you a YouTube professional or a content creation professional? Do you figure? Like, if YouTube blows up, are you just like, fuck it, I'm doing something else? Or will you think about, well, maybe SoundCloud or Vessel, or I don't know? Actually,
I probably should have given that a lot more thought than I have in the past. Right now, I'm pretty heavily invested in YouTube. Okay, yeah. And it is those things where it's like, if the YouTube thing doesn't work out, I'm just going to go back to doing a software developer or go do something else. But the truth is, I am a content creator because I like to create content. Like, primarily, my goal is to create things to share them with people because I love to see the positive influence that my stuff has on people. Yeah. That's like the biggest reward above everything else. If I didn't need the money, like, the money wouldn't even be an aspect. A lot of people can't say that. If I didn't need the money and everything was just fine and I won the lottery, I would still make content because I want to entertain people. I want to see people benefit from what I can tell them. Okay. But that being said, the struggle is I do need the money. YouTube is where the money's at right now. Yeah. It's hard to monetize a lot of other platforms. I also turn down a lot of monetization, like the Patreon stuff. A lot of people tell me I should do a Patreon. I've had people tell me that, oh, hey, I would be $100 patron if, you did like a weekly thing where you got on Discord and talked to, your $100 plus patrons. And I look at that and I'm like, that would be the smart thing to do, but I'm still not there. Okay. I'm not there, and I think it's because I just don't feel like I'm creating a steady enough content stream, and I don't feel like I'm creating what I can be proud of to where it's like I'm okay doing that. Yeah. Is that weird? Like, yeah, I know money's sitting on the table. I should just grab the money. I mean, honestly, any logical person on earth would tell you that's what you do in that situation. Yeah. But that's why I don't have a Patreon. I am going to start live streaming again on Twitch. Twitch is going to partner me. So I'm going to start live streaming on the Twitch and on the YouTube platform probably simultaneously because I want to start doing stuff with that. I am branching out and I'm starting a car channel called Cargasm that kicks off next month. I'm going to be reviewing Mercedes AMG 63 Black Edition. So some crazy like 700 horsepower rear-wheel drive Mercedes car. Damn. And I've tons and tons of people that have cars that want me to go and review them. And I'm passionate about that. So I'm going to be starting that channel. That's going to be more of my Zen channel where I just go and just do what I love, which is just drive cars. But as far as like the podcast stuff, I put a lot of thought, but I just haven't jumped in yet. It's one of the things. I think a podcast would be really good actually, because a lot of people like to just listen to things when they're driving around. Yeah. I don't think I'm a horrible person to listen to. I'm somewhat pleasant to listen to. So it would make sense for me to do that. But honestly, if the YouTube thing just like crumbled in tomorrow and everything fell apart, my first course of action would probably be like, you know what? I gave it the college try. I think I'm just going to go back and take that Google job and, drink my coffee at Fountain and, the next search engine that changes the world. But I can't tell you if that's actually what would happen.
Well, because I wonder with that, like, because when I spent that year traveling around a travel trailer, I'd always said beforehand, if this all blows up, I'm just going back to the server room. And then there was some point during that trip I was like, I don't want to go back to the server room. Don't make me go.
Dude, I'm here wearing pajama pants and a collared shirt. I mean, I'm like, I like this job. I really do like this job.
Yeah.
And I like things about it. It's just, and like you said, like I get the cold feet thing too, where I'm like, I want to walk away. I convince myself. I'm like, and I've had this conversation with myself almost every week since I've started this job. You know, I think I'm just done. I think I created a bunch of content. There's a bunch of new guys out there that are more entertaining than me. I think it's done. I think I'm just going to go do something else. And then I think about that way for about an hour or two. Yeah. And then I'm like, how can I walk away from this? How can I? I built a channel that has almost 800,000 subscribers and almost 100 million views. How can I just get up and walk away from this? And that's really hard to do, because even if you feel like you're burned out to a certain degree, you almost feel an obligation to see it through, just because you already built something that's so beyond your wildest expectations of what you would ever thought you could do in that space. Yeah. And it's really, really hard to just entertain the option of walking away from that. But I think it's therapeutic to do it every once in a while, just to, at least threaten it.
Well, but do you worry, being in the tech field? So if you left Microsoft 2.5 years ago, I mean, do you worry that your resume is biodegrading?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No. That's absolutely a big fear. I've told people that too, that it's every day my resume is saying the same technologies when there's 10 new technologies coming out every minute. Yeah. And it does look dated. And a lot of the job offers that I get nowadays through LinkedIn and stuff like that are more of marketing positions and social media and things that align with my current aspirations as a content producer, versus my actual technological skills, which is where most of my passion lies. So, no, I absolutely agree that the skill set is diminished. But the thing is, I'm a passionate developer, and I've done it my whole life. I started developing software when I was 7 years old on Apple, doing BASIC. So it's kind of built into me. Okay. And I'm of the mind that if I wanted to go back, it would take me at most a month to basically become completely proficient in whatever technologies that I wanted to. Not to sound arrogant, but I've done it before. It's like I know enough about the base constructs of languages, how they work, how compilers work. I know enough about the low end of the stuff that everything else is just learning syntax and learning formulas. That's it. Everything else underneath is still the same. Computers are still multi-threaded. They're not quantum yet. Everything's largely on x86 architecture, so everything still applies. All the stuff, context switching, threading, memory management, all that stuff hasn't changed much in 20 or 30 years. So as far as just jumping back on the horse, I would just look at the job that I'd be interested in and be like, oh, okay, they need me to know Python. Okay, I'm going to go learn Python. And then since I can't prove to them that I have a resume that says that I got a certification in Python, I'm just going to go write some crazy-ass program that they've never seen before in Python and show it to them.
That works. Cool.
Yeah. It's kind of a way to go about it, but it's worked in the past.
Oh. Then one of the questions I have, so you do a lot of the live streaming with Jay's 2 Cents.
I sure do. I love that guy.
How did that all start out?
Well, I'll be honest. Yeah. I was a fangirl of Jay's. Jay didn't know I existed. I knew he existed before he knew I existed. Yeah. And I reached out to him. I think we were really, really young on our channels. I mean, I think I had 17,000 subs and he had 30-some thousand subs. Okay. And at 30,000 subs, I was fangirling over this guy. I was like, this guy's the greatest thing on the entire internet. I was like, oh, this guy's way better than Eli. I know, burn. No, so what had happened was a friend of mine on Twitter was the one that first got us communicating, kind of linked us together. Yeah. One night I'm basically just tweeting his ear off, and it was just a perfect situation where normally he wouldn't have communicated with anybody, right? He was already kind of burned out on the whole aspect of talking to all these people that are trying to get his attention. And he was just kind of having a night where he was just sitting on the couch playing on his cell phone or whatever. And I was like, dude, get on Skype. Get on Skype. You know how it is. You probably get a million people a day. They're like, get on Skype, Eli. And normally you're like, no. So I finally talk him into it. He comes back on a message. He's like, yeah, jump on Skype. We ended up talking on Skype for 2-3 hours and just completely hit it off. Damn. Okay. Yeah. So it was one of those things where it's but I had to bend the guy's ear to get him to get on Skype, which is exactly what I tell everybody to please not do to content creators, because it wears them down. But I was that asshole back in the day. I speak from experience. So I bent his ear. I talked to him for several hours, and it turns out that we had a lot of the same kind of aspirations. We had the same type of life struggles with the weight, the weight issues and stuff like that. A lot of stuff just clicked.
Isn't he like that thick?
Dude, Jay used to be like 400 and some pounds, and now he's just this like tall, lanky, skinny dude.
Really? I would have never. Yeah, because I look at it. Yeah, he looks like he needs a steak.
He looks like you literally need to feed him a sandwich now. No, like just a couple of years ago. I mean, even when I first flew down to meet him, he was twice the size he is now.
Really?
And before that, he showed me pictures that was already like halfway through his weight loss journey. Like he showed me the pictures of when he was like 400 pounds, and I was like, how is this the same guy?
Yeah.
So he was hugely inspiring and motivating to me. And what had happened is we started, talking more online and stuff like that. And through some videos that I created or whatever, I ended up blowing by him in subscribers. Like I just and you could tell there was some frustration there. And so we poked each other back and forth and everything. But you can see now, I mean, he's found his groove. Yeah. He quit his day job and started doing YouTube full time, like a long time after I did, right? So it's obvious that I was growing faster because I had more time to dedicate to it. Okay. As soon as he quit his job and went full time, his channel's been on fire. I mean, he's going to pass me in subscribers if he hasn't already, like in probably the next couple of days.
Oh, damn.
He all of his videos get like 200,000-300,000 views, like religiously minimum. Yeah. The dude is just killing it, and it's cool to like sit here and watch this because he took the whole quit your job and do YouTube full time like completely seriously. He runs it like a business. He plans it like a business. He lines up his sponsorships and everything like that. Everything's like meticulously planned. Whereas I'm sitting over here in my room with just a bunch of crap laying on the floor. Do I want to do anything today? I don't know. I can go play Gears of War. Yeah. And so, it definitely has given me that contrast watching him grow of how important it is to stay focused and ignore all the haters and just do your thing. So, but yeah, that's how we started out. Now we still do tech talk all the time and rag on each other endlessly. And he will actually be up here at my house in 9 days, staying with me for a week. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So then with that, I mean, obviously you have fun doing it. But one of the weird things I hear, maybe it's because I'm a geek and I spent too fucking long in the server room, but I hear all these other YouTube creators and they just drone on about this whole collaboration shit. Like, if you don't, the only way to be successful is collab. And again, like, I like talking to people on Skype. This is about as close as I want to be. Like, have you found, like, doing that with him, has that been valuable for the channel? I know it's fun to do, but is there an actual value there, do you think?
For me, that's a tough one. Tech Talk, I do. It's less of a show and more of an excuse for Jay and I just to get together and talk.
Okay.
It's never really been a business venture. That's why we've never taken sponsors for it. We have separate means of donations. So during the show, we do get people that donate and everything and ask questions, and we answer those questions on stream. So we do make some money off of it. Yeah. Nowhere near what we do with anything else. I think we more just do it because it's a reason for us to get together and unwind. There really isn't a business venture there. The Tech Talk thing is not nearly as profitable as everything else that we do. We just enjoy doing it, so we keep doing it.
And then one of the things, because I was watching one of the Tech Talks, and I saw one of your drunk shows. I don't know how many drunk shows you do.
I think there's like 3 historically, but like it was really, really bad where Jay was like rolling around on the floor farting in my nerd cave.
I think I must have seen that. Do you ever delete that kind of content, or do you ever feel? Because I did like 2 videos where I had drunk beer beforehand, and then I have to say, like, after I saw it, I was like, and they went away within about 24 hours. Do you just find that fun to do? I mean, do you get a little queasy about it at all, or?
I do not. I actually, like, I will spare you the horror, but I would literally like whip off my shirt and do the truffle shuffle right now and not give 2 thoughts about it, bro. Like, when I started doing the YouTube thing, I immediately came to the conclusion that, for better or worse, it's just me and who I am.
Man.
And part of who I am is every once in a while I like to get like blistering drunk and say stupid things. So the only content I've ever deleted off YouTube has been content that was flagged by the YouTube system.
Huh, okay.
Like, and probably the most cringeworthy thing I ever did was the internet song, which I'm sure is still out there somewhere. I'm sure somebody re-uploaded it somewhere, but I had to delete that one because YouTube, it got flagged too many times. I didn't think it was particularly that horrible, but it was a good demonstration of like what you can do in 5 hours after being pissed drunk. And I still got the stuff like going downstairs drunk, playing dirt drunk. Truth is, I don't drink anymore. I have gout in my foot, so I haven't drank in probably 6 months, really, other than maybe an occasional 1 beer.
Okay.
I haven't been drunk in like 6 months. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's fun to get drunk and every once in a while and hang out with your friends and stuff, but I don't miss it horribly.
Okay.
But at the same time, do I regret anything that I did? No, I don't. I stand behind all my videos I've created, even the ones that really piss people off, like 3D printing the AR-15 lower. All the people in the UK think now that I'm just a big redneck gun nut. Yeah. I shouldn't say all. A lot of them are actually really supportive of my content. But it's one of those things where I believe that if you delete anything off the internet, all you're doing is inviting everybody else to just re-upload it. Okay. And make it a big deal, because the fact that you deleted it makes it a big deal. So I'm of the mind that if I uploaded it, at some point in time I thought that it was cool. And if that changes, I don't care. At some point in time, I thought it was cool, so I'm just going to let it ride. Yeah. And as far as it, like, hurting your reputation and stuff like that, I've also thought about that. Like, is it going to hurt your reputation with a company? If they go back and do their background research and find you, like, bobsledding down some stairs drunk with a helmet on. And the truth is, no, I haven't really noticed that. Yeah. Like companies understand that we're entertainers first. Yeah. And none of the content that I do is intentionally racist, sexist, or anything like that. Even the little innuendos I do and, like, the ladies bit and everything like that, none of it comes from a place of hate. So I can stand behind it entirely. You're always going to get the people that rag on you a little bit and say, oh, okay, that was a little too much, or you went too far, or you did that. But it's like, I stand behind it, that when I did it, it had a certain intention to have a certain effect, and I completely stand behind that.
That's cool. Then off to a different track. So you just came back from the Makers Faire in New York, right?
Sure did.
And you go to quite a few events, from what I can tell from your videos.
I do. I went to 4 events in the last 40 days. Yeah. So I'm just now still catching up.
Is that for fun, or is that for your channel? Is that for a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. This is another one of those things where it's like I kind of screw myself over a little, because I should be doing very specific events that align perfectly with what everybody wants on my channel. But my channel is first and foremost about what I enjoy and what I want to do, right? Yeah. So the Maker Faire is one of those events. Every year I go because there's nothing that gets my creative juices flowing more than seeing a bunch of creative people creating things. Okay. And Maker Faire is like the most dense population of those people. So I went to the New York Maker Faire, and before that I went to the Portland Mini Maker Faire, which isn't very mini, by the way. Yeah. It's one of the bigger Maker Fairs on the West Coast. And I also go to LAN events. Like, I go to PDX LAN 4 times a year, and I do videos there, and I play video games, and I live stream. And it's like, those videos never get very many views or anything like that, but I still enjoy doing it. Yeah. And I enjoy sharing that experience. So most of the travel that I do, though, does align with the channel enough that I can usually get a sponsor on board to help out with the costs of the trip and stuff like that, which makes it really, really, conducive. I didn't make any money going to New York World Maker Faire, but I did get my expenses covered. Yeah. Okay. So that's nice. It's like I actually got to do something that I really like to do and share that experience, and it didn't cost me a lot of money. That's cool. So that's win-win-win. It's kind of working it. But truth be told, what I really should be doing is finding all the events that align specifically with 3D printing or something that I'm doing on my channel, and then partner with a company that's going to pay me to come out and speak on the event and stuff like that. But again, it's like that's the business sense of me isn't quite there yet.
That's cool. So I guess that is one question, though, with the 3D printing. Is that getting long in the tooth at all? I mean, are those videos still getting good views? Because that's one of the problems with content is you find the golden goose.
Yes.
But then the goose, starts going through menopause, and
and then somebody eats it, right? And you're like, where do we
go? How is the 3D printing, that kind of stuff, doing?
So I was the top 3D printing channel for about 2 years, and I did get kind of burned out on it and wanted to do other types of content. And so while it was still a golden goose, I walked away from it, which again, wrong move, right? But when I did come back to it, I realized that I inspired a lot of other channels to start up, like the 3D Printing Nerd, the Hot End. There's a bunch of them out there, and I talked to the guys, and they're all inspired from originally watching my videos. A lot of them got their first 3D printer because of the videos that they watched that I created, and I find that hugely inspiring. But on the flip side, there is a lot of competition where there never used to be. Now you do a search for 3D printing, and there's 9,000 pages of 3D printing channels. Everybody that bought a 3D printer created a 3D printing channel, and everybody that bought a printer is at Thingiverse downloading the latest models and printing them and making time lapses. So now the only thing that's really interesting in the 3D printing space is either the cutting edge technology, which I'm working on right now. This is a Forum Labs printed representation of me. It's like an injection molded part. Yeah, it's Cradosicles. It's Kratos with Barnacules head on it. And, you know, in printing stuff that's like damn near microscopic. Like you probably can't even see this because it's blurry, but this tiny little thing is that same thing I just showed you, just on like a microscopic level.
Holy crap.
So new printing technology, like SLA, that's the new stuff I'm going to start getting into to set myself apart again. Okay. And the other thing is everybody's printing stuff that's already been created and is already online. Yeah. I want to focus on learning how to make my own stuff. I want to learn like Fusion 360 and go 3D model, like, you know, fan holders for my desk, LED clips and stuff, the whole things, and actually be on not just the printing side anymore, but on the creation side in the end-to-end project aspect of things. So, okay. But you're right. Anything that you find that you have a niche, like the big screens, right? Yeah. I was one of the first guys with the big screen. So every video I made where it was 3 screens and video surround, those videos get hundreds of thousands of views. Yeah. Now I make a video that might get like 30 or 40,000 views because there's, you know, 800 videos a minute being uploaded with surround setups because everybody has them now. They saw them, they liked them, everybody went and did it. Yeah. Anything you do online, like actually, here's a really good case in point. Remember the guy that has the press channel? The one where he just smashes stuff with a hydraulic press?
Oh, yeah.
So that dude, and he created the first channel, so he's still, like, his SEO is so high that his videos still get like 1 to 2 million hits per video per week. Dude's killing it. And all he does is he doesn't even talk or nothing. He just sticks stuff in the hydraulic press, pushes the button, smashes it, and then does some slow-mo up close, and then he's done. That's the thing is, though, now you go search for press channel, and there's like 15 different pages of people that have hydraulic press channels now. Because they saw how successful he was, and they were like, I have a hydraulic press, so I'm going to go in my garage and crush things with it. Thing with the Will It Blend guy, there was like 20 or 30 other Blender channels that popped up. So no matter what you do that's successful, somebody is always going to pop up and emulate that and do it. Yeah. And I never fault them for that because they saw something that entertained them. It was something popular, and they just want to be a part of that. So I would never fault people for doing that. So I would say that the commodity you got to focus on the most is yourself. And you know that more than anything. You know, your voice, your personality, your outlook on things, those are the things that are unique that cannot be replicated. Yeah. You know, no matter how much somebody tries to be Eli, they won't be Eli. You know? And so that's the thing that I kind of have the most faith in, is that as long as I can keep just being myself and resist the urge to not be myself or to cave into all the hate and everything like that, as long as I can just keep being myself, I will always have the audience of the people that just want to see the one Barnacules. That's it. They just want to see the one Jerry. They want to see the one Eli. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether I'm doing 3D printing or building cars or doing race simulator or coding. And none of that matters because everybody's just more interested in the presentation and my outlook on something than they are the subject matter of the video.
That makes sense. Then to go for a little bit different change. So, because you've brought up, I always get nervous with this, but you're bringing this up in your own videos. So, like with what's that?
I said you're going to call me fat, aren't you?
No. But like with health insurance. So you left Microsoft, where you probably had the platinum, diamond studded, whatever.
Well, I did the year before. Obamacare ruined that for Microsoft. Like our Cadillac program died with Obamacare, unfortunately. Really? Okay. Yeah, when the Obamacare thing dropped with the healthcare opening, then we went from a $0 copay to a $3,000 a year copay. Damn. And 100% no cap benefit to a $2 million cap benefit. So our insurance was still great. Don't get me wrong. I mean, $3,000 a year out of pocket, everything else 100% coverage. But before that, before the Obamacare thing dropped, we had a plan that was $0 copay on medications or services. You had absolutely no cap. Like my son, for instance, luckily we had him when I was with Microsoft because his bill was $2.8 million. What? And Primera paid all but $24 of it. So, like, I would have had to file bankruptcy even if I owed 1% of that. So it was like, that was absolutely amazing. My wife, her bill was like $380,000 or something like that. She had to be in the hospital for 40 days on bed rest. And so luckily that all happened pre Obamacare, but the insurance situation completely changed now. I mean, I dropped it down a little. I think I pay $1,200 a month now for insurance for me, my wife, and my kid. And even with that, we still have a $6,000 per person a year copay
per person.
Because we have to have a level of insurance that covers all my son's autism therapy.
Yeah.
Get an insurance package that covers all the autism therapy, you basically have to give up on all the copays and everything like that and have a really high premium. And so that sucks. So the thing is, I'm literally paying like $1,100 to $1,200 a month when I'm not even using that amount in services myself. My wife's not even using that amount in services, but we have to have it just because my son has special needs that could, become very, very large. It's like basically we're playing the lotto, right? It's better to pay now and not get hit with a $200,000 something wrong happened a year down the road.
Damn.
And not covered. So yeah, the insurance thing is a really tough thing to do, is being self-employed.
So then, but with his autism, so I mean, for anybody else that's watching this, like with autism, I mean, do they consider it mental, physical? Like, can they nail you to say, oh, that's not really a chemical thing, that's a psychological thing, so we don't cover it? Like, how does that work out?
Certain insurance packages cover different things.
Yeah.
For him, it's his specific therapy that he needs for the autism is like cognitive, visual. So he has a lazy eye that they're working on his vision, his coordination with his hands and stuff like that. All those different therapies rank different, and they're through different companies. So different insurances cover those differently, or sometimes not at all. Like, for instance, my insurance is so terrible, even though it's a platinum plan, it's so terrible. I went to the pharmacy the other day because my doctor wrote me a script for some new medication that there's no generic for it, right?
Yeah.
So I walk in, they said, your insurance covers zero of this because there's not a generic available, and so you got to pay $400 a month. And I was like, nope. I walked back to my doctor and said, okay, I guess we're going back to the old meds. I wasn't paying $400 a month for medication. It's like, even though I have this like crazy good plan that helps my son, unfortunately, it doesn't help me with what I need. So we're redoing the whole insurance thing this year. We're going to get somebody to help us out with the selection of it. And now my son, I'd say 90% of his therapies are done. Like, they've cleared him. He's caught his peer group. He just joined his first grade class at his age level, and he's doing a full day. So this is the first year he's actually doing a full day. Before, he could only do half a day, and then the other half he had to be with therapy.
Oh, okay.
So he's getting to the point now where I think we're down to 2 therapies that he has to do. It's like vision therapy and like what is it, motor and cognitive.
Yeah.
But he's got 2 therapies. Once he's done with those, then I can abandon that insurance plan entirely and say, okay, we don't need the autism stuff anymore, hopefully.
Really? So autism is something, I thought that would track with you for most of your life at least, but that is something he can actually get past?
It'll always be in his file that he was in the autism spectrum.
Yeah.
But it'll also be accompanied by where his level is at after therapy.
Huh,
so the question is, I mean, if I'm honest with myself as a parent, a lot of parents aren't. My son will always be a little different. Like, you'll know, talking to him, interacting with him, you'll tell that he's not what people would consider normal.
Yeah.
But he's not so far off from normal that you would immediately pick up on it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like, you talk to him for a while, you're going to be like, okay, he does seem like he's kind of a goofy kid, Yeah. But at the same time, he's smart, he reads good, he's learning math really well.
Huh.
He's at his grade level for a lot of things. So as far as where he'll be able to function later in life, I don't think it'd be any different than somebody who was diagnosed with like Asperger's or something like that and had the therapy to kind of overcome it.
Really? Okay.
A lot of it is teaching kids how to handle, like, autistic kids don't handle emotions the same way we do.
Yeah.
They wear their emotions on the sleeve. Things that make normal people happy make them sad. Things that make them happy. They're wired a little different. Yeah. So therapy isn't fixing that so much as it's just teaching them how to appear normal.
Okay. Yeah.
You can tell when he's tired. You can tell when he's, when everything, he's just Xander. Xander's just Xander.
Yeah.
During the day when he's well rested and he's on point, he knows what he has to do and how he's supposed to act and how he's supposed to react to things. Yeah. But you totally know that it's learned. It's all learned. It's not instinctual like it is for you or me. It's like he is applying for something funny to make him smile and to make him laugh. That's like an application. He's like, I'm supposed to laugh. It isn't just instinctual,
Yeah.
And so, but once that training's there, then I don't think it's going to harm him too much. And if I be able to get a job, he'll be able to be high functioning, and everything will be good there. And unfortunately, you can't say that for all autistic children, right? I mean, the different levels of autism, but we lucked out. His autism is completely treatable, and he's come a long ways. And despite a couple little behavioral tics that he still has and he might have for the rest of his life, I think he'll fit in really well.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's cool. And then you bring up your own health quite a bit. Like, you were just talking about the gout, and you've talked about weight in the videos. I mean, is there any advice you can give people? Because I know a lot of people run into the issues and they can't quite get past it. Have you found any helpful things for trying to stay healthy, or any problems that keep you from being healthy?
Don't get fat. Don't get fat. I'm just going to throw that out there. I was how do I put this? Because I hate being wrong. Everybody hates being wrong to some degree. But the truth is, I've always been a proponent for fat people being able to be able to do everything that skinny people and fit people can do. Yeah. And up until a point, that's true when you're young. But I'm noticing that in my 30s, that's not true anymore. Like, yeah. I have chronic pain. I have problems with energy levels. I have all these things that if I was just in better shape, and I could go back and tell my young self, listen, dude, stop justifying being fat and lose the weight earlier. I totally 100% would. Yeah. And now that I'm here to this point, everything's a lot harder, but I have been pretty successful. I've lost 30 pounds since I started with Obese to Beast on the lifestyle change. Yeah. But I went to New York. Everything fell apart. I got back from New York, and I'm still fighting to this day to get back to 100% of the only 1,900 calories a day, working out. It's very, very hard if you come off of it even for a single day to get back on the horse and tackle. So that's the biggest advice that I could say to anybody is it's absolutely 100% possible to lose weight and to get healthy and to shed, the mental ailments. Like, my gout is half as bad as it was 30 pounds ago. Like, it's obviously a weight problem because losing the weight, I definitely noticed that I don't have to take nearly as much gout medication and I don't have as much pain in my big toe. Yeah. So it's definitely that exacerbates the issue. But as far as health is concerned, my best advice to you is try to distance yourself from stress as much as possible. I found that stress is the great equalizer gaining weight. I mean, it's literally a 1-to-1 correlation there. If you're a happy person, you're not going to be crazy overeating, and you're not going to be held up inside and afraid to go out and exercise. And I've come to that realization. So you need to do what you need to do to alleviate the stress. Yeah. I'm not good at it. I can't give you too much advice on how to get rid of the stress, but I'm just saying I know that's a pillar. Yeah. But as far as the YouTube thing's concerned, this is one thing I want to put out there absolutely, because I get a lot of questions about this. Mm-hmm. Doing YouTube is not going to make you happy. Doing YouTube is not going to make you all of a sudden change your life and make everything better. Yeah. Truth is, YouTube is going to make things harder. It absolutely will, because I see so many people that message me, and it makes me really sad because I don't like breaking people's hearts and dreams and stuff. But they're like, I want to create a YouTube channel because I want to entertain people like you, and I want to be a happy person like you. And I'm a really depressed individual, and I want to, I think entertaining people will pull me out of that depression. Okay. That's an admirable goal, but realize that putting yourself out there in front of a lot of people brings you under fire. It doesn't matter if you're the nicest person in the world and your channel is called Petting Kittens. It doesn't matter. You are going to get people that will just want your attention, and they will get it by any means possible. If they need to threaten your family, threaten your life, tell you you're going to die, threaten your kids, that will happen. It's not a matter of is it going to happen. It will happen. So if you have any kind of chinks in your armor, so to speak, do not do YouTube. Now, for the rest of you guys that have the iron skin and can handle everything, queue up, man. Let's do this.
Well, I think that's one thing to ask you is because, you see different people have different personalities on YouTube, and obviously my personality is every one of my subscribers can go jump off a cliff for all I care. You obviously are much nicer and kinder. But what I found weird is I tell my subscribers to go to hell quite often, and they're actually rather pretty decent subscribers. Whereas it seems like you're a pretty damn nice person, and you get some shit holy fuck.
Yeah, no, I probably should have some kind of plaque or record for the amount of toxic people that I've attracted doing absolutely nothing that should attract toxic people. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that the toxic people of the internet are looking for people that they can affect and people they can get to. Okay. You've got a harder personality. Yeah. So they pretty much just assume that if they come at you, even if they do get to you, it's not going to be a public escapade. Yeah. With me, I think that they're banking on, because I'm a nice guy, and because I'm a family guy, and because of all this, they'll be able to successfully call me out, basically. They'll be able to successfully get some kind of a reaction out of me. Yeah. And the truth is, that used to work, but I've become numb to it now. Okay. And that's kind of a sad thing. I've noticed it with Jay, especially Jay. Everybody does the Jay's a dickhole thing, right? That's hashtag Jay's a dickhole. I don't know if you've seen that's somehow we made that a thing a year ago, and it just goes wrong. So Jay used to be a really, really kind of jovial, just nice guy, respond to everybody. And now Jay is just an asshole. He's a self-proclaimed asshole. He's just had enough of it. And he came to the conclusion one day that, you know what? This is my business. This is my content. I'm going to do what I want to do. And if you don't like it, there's the door.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah.
And since he's adopted that mentality, his analytics on his channel have gone up. People are more receptive to him, even though he's like making a video. He's like, this graphics card's better than this graphics card. And if you don't think so, you can fuck off. I mean, that's his attitude. And people are like, they like that decisiveness. Now, me on the other hand, I hold up and it's like, well, this graphics card's good, but you know, hey, this one's got some good things going for it too. And this is nice. Then all of a sudden, it's like blood in the water in everybody's jaws and trying to like nip at my heels and my Achilles tendon. Yeah. And it's sad, but I think that YouTube. The reason why you see YouTubers, they get bigger, they start to distance themselves from their audience, which I haven't done. Like, it's something that I fought. Like, I have to fight every day to say, you know what, I'm going to keep just being me and doing what I want to do. But the reason why they abandon it is the bigger you get, the larger that toxic audience gets that comes after you. Yeah. And not only the toxic audience, but also the people that want something from you.
Yeah.
She's made it clear that's like, you know, I'm not going to retweet your shit. Fuck off. Like, I don't, you know, Jay's like, no, I'm not going to do that. If I can't do it for everybody, I'm not going to do it for everybody. He keeps it very, very short and simple, and I have huge respect for him doing that because now he doesn't get nearly as many of those requests. I'm the type of person where it's like I get on there and it's like I've got 500 tweets a day that's like, my sister has cancer, share her GoFundMe. I need a computer, share my GoFundMe. I need a thing, GoFundMe everywhere. And it's because, you know, early on I adopted the mentality of, you know what, I'm going to be nice. I'm going to share a couple of these out when I can and do what I can. If I think it's, you know, it's you know, really going to help them, I'm going to try. Yeah. And you realize that no good deed goes unpunished. When you do something like that, you immediately come under fire from the community, and everybody expects to have the same level of one-on-one interaction. If somebody gets more attention than another person, then that entire group rises up against you. Yeah. And it basically forces YouTubers to disengage their audience when there's so many good people that are deserving of the attention, that have really done amazing things, and they get screwed because of the large group of hate that flies your way. Yeah. And so I've become hardened to it now, to the point where it's like I get these emails and I look at it and it's like, oh, hey, Jerry, you know, I really need this thing. I reply back. You know, sometimes I don't even reply, but I reply back and I'm like, hey, I'm really sorry, but I can't share your thing because this happens. I take time to respond. And more often than not, they reply back and they're like, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that you read my email and even responded. And I'm like, okay, that's a good reaction. But I still get the ones where it's like, you know, fuck you. I hope you die. I hope your family dies. I hope your son dies a horrible death so you can see what we're going through right now. You're not the person I thought you were. And it's like, I'm just a YouTuber. I'm trying to take care of me and my family out here, and you somehow think that I owe you everything. Yeah. And now I'm just numb to it. Now I'm just like delete. Oh, a death threat. Oh, another one of those. Oh, big deal. Delete. Have you gotten any death threats?
No. You talk about like this whole death threat thing. I'm like, what the hell?
I've never gotten a death threat. I am genuinely shocked because like everybody I know, even the guys like just hitting like 50. 75,000 in the tech community, they always get death threats, but for some reason you don't. You've never got the email that's just like a picture of your house and it's like, I know where you live, I'm coming for you, or something like that?
No.
Well, you are now, Eli, if you leave this in the video.
Well, maybe the nice part is being around the Baltimore area. It's like maybe we take things a little seriously around here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think they're thinking that, because I'm in Seattle or something, I'll go down to the Starbucks and cry to my friends about it instead of doing something. But no, I remember when I first got my first couple of death threats, I took them seriously. The FBI opened a case. I had a case with my local police department. I think I got 14 cases open with my local police department now. Damn. Not necessarily any of them going anywhere, but it's just better to have the case number just in case anything escalates. You can just be like, all right, just tack it on. But now I don't take any of that seriously anymore. Like, I don't even read them. If the topic of the mail is like, you know, this is the funny thing is, like, I'll get these mails that literally the subject of the mail is please read urgent matter, right? And I used to click on them, and every single time I click on them, it'd be one of two things. Either detailed plans on how I'm going to get killed by some guy or how my family's going to get killed, or it would be like, I need a computer, here's my link to my GoFundMe, or send me one of your old computers. Yeah. So now I just delete those. I literally have a filter that if there's anything that's like urgent matter or warning or anything on the Man Cave account, it just immediately just goes in the garbage. I'll even put it in a separate folder. So just know that if you email me and you put urgent, please read, must read, or anything in the title that implies any kind of urgency, you just go in the garbage.
I still can't get over that whole like I said, I just don't understand like the death threats. I don't get that.
Dude, I got a picture of my house. Some dude drove by my house with a cell phone and took a picture out the window with his cell phone of my house to prove that it wasn't like a Google Maps photo, that it was actually his photo that he took himself. So it's got to be some dude that lives reasonably in the area, or maybe he flew in, he was in a rental car, and he just wanted to rattle his saber or something. But it was like, yeah, it was detailed plans on like how he was going to enter the house. Now he's going to like use a sniper rifle to kill people, and I was like, oh my god.
Christ.
And so now when I get those, I just delete them. I don't even send them to FBI anymore. I'm just like delete. Like, can't take it seriously.
I guess not. So a couple of final questions here. So I was out. I lived in Seattle for about 2 months last year.
You did?
Yeah. When we met, and holy, I lived out there like, oh, that's scary to think about, like 13, 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And I thought it was expensive back then. I remember being like, oh my golly, it's expensive. And now Seattle is just brutal. Seattle is just like brutal. So do you think it's a good place to go as a tech professional? Like, is it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'd say that the only better place to be would be down in Silicon Valley.
Okay, yeah.
That's literally the only other place that's got this much IT infrastructure in one small little area.
But can you have a decent? Okay, here's the thing. There's a difference between having a good career and having a good life. I mean, can you actually afford a decent life there, even with ridiculous pay?
Don't live in Seattle. Don't live in Seattle. Like where I live, it's much more reasonable. My house payment's $1,500 a month.
Oh, well, okay, yeah.
So like people pay more. Like in Seattle, you couldn't even get a 1-bedroom apartment for twice that.
Yeah.
And I live in a house on a little bit of property with a shed out back and everything. So don't live in Seattle. Just expect to have a little bit of a commute. Like for me, to get to Microsoft was about a 30-minute commute,
Okay.
which I didn't consider that bad. I mean, it was fun. When I bought a car, I enjoyed driving. So just don't live in the city because it's not worth it. Even if it puts you within walking distance of your job, it's just not worth it. And most of the IT stuff isn't in Seattle. Like Seattle has a lot of it. Don't get me wrong. Seattle has a lot of it. But if you want to work at Microsoft, you're going to be in Redmond. Redmond is not nearly as crazy as Seattle.
Okay.
Or you're going to be in Bellevue, which is the other branches. If you're doing anything with Intel, HP, Dell, any of those companies, that's all going to be Bellevue and Redmond area. If you're doing Google, there's a campus in was it Woodinville? Or not Woodinville, near Woodinville. Kirkland. It's Kirkland is the campus over there. So there's all these places that you can go that the cost of living isn't bad. It's not cheap, but it isn't bad.
Yeah, okay.
And you can get into work and you'll be fine. And that's what most people do. Like in the town that I live in, like there's, it's like there's cow pastures and stuff. But like most of the people out here work for either Microsoft or one of the other OEMs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because we were in Seattle and it was just like, holy crap. It was brutal.
Yeah, unless you're like a director making, $300,000-$400,000 a year, you're not going to be living in Seattle. Like, I mean, a rundown house in downtown, like in the outskirts of Seattle. I mean, you'll spend $800,000 to $1 million on like a house that was built in the 50s. It's like a 2-bedroom with a little kitchen, and you're like, oh, what the hell? Yeah.
And then what would you tell somebody? So if you knew somebody that was 18 years old right now trying to get into tech. I say tech now instead of IT because I think it's gotten like where do you think is a good, what I'm saying, like you started off in the computer repair company, you started off tinkering, like what would be the equivalent, do you think, now for an 18-year-old to try to get ahead?
Honestly, unless you have a degree, like a specific degree in a certain sector, like specifically programming or database administration or something like that, the easiest way to build yourself up through a company is to enter at the ground floor in a lab, be a lab engineer.
Oh, okay.
There are a billion lab engineer positions everywhere. Every company has like 5 lab engineers for every 1 developer because they have these huge data centers that need to be managed and need to be run, and they need a bunch of lackeys running around and plugging in terminals and doing stuff. If you can get into a company at that ground floor, once you're inside the company, then you have access to all of the managers and everything to prove what your real ability and skill set is.
Interesting. Okay.
So it's way better instead of trying to get your resume to the top of a pile, which is impossible without some kind of accolade. Instead update your LinkedIn profile, if you're into programming, link all your programming projects, everything you did, but make it heavy on your hardware and lab engineering skills. Go to a company, get to the top of the pile, because it's easy to get to the top of the pile on the lab engineering list if you have programming skills, because it's not even an expectation of the job. It's icing on the cake.
Yeah,
because
okay.
you'll use it at some point. You will.
Yeah.
So get in at that level, and then once you're in the company, then talk to the managers and let them know that you're interested in why you're qualified to climb the ladder, because it's a hell of a lot easier to do it that way than to try to climb the top of a pile of a bunch of people who have degrees from what's the not MIT, there's actually a better IT school than MIT now overseas in the Institute of Bengali. The Technical Institute of Bengali in India is the number one programming school in the world. They're churning out more software developers that companies are interested in than any other school on earth. There's actually Americans that are traveling to India to get degrees in that college. So just realize those are the ones that are going to the top of the pile, not you with your community college degree or high school dropout like me.
Yeah.
We have to do it a little different. We have to go into the mail room and then prove to everybody once we're in the mail room that we can be running everything.
Huh, that's interesting. And then the final question, because I always laugh at people, because people say, Eli, why do you use Mac for video content creation? And as I always say, if you want to know why I use Mac, just go see Barnacules' Twitter feed. As you say, I've spent 8 hours.
Yeah. No, I totally understand that. Every one of you're right. I'm just going to say you're right. You're right. Because everybody I know, I watched a dude the other day edit a video on location on a MacBook Pro in Final Cut.
Yeah.
And it was like smoother on his doing 4K editing on his laptop than it is on my $10,000 PC. That has it has 2 Titans in it. It has 2 of the best graphics cards in the world. And this little MacBook is still easier to use and easier to edit. And it's because the software is so well optimized in that space.
Yeah.
Final Cut is designed, it's a piece of software designed to run on one hardware matrix. That's it. Yeah. And it's heavily vetted for that one hardware matrix, that one resolution, that one everything. Yeah. And then over on the PC spectrum, you have Adobe. Yeah. And Adobe pretty much rules the world on the PC side. Although there are stuff like DaVinci Resolve and stuff like that that are way higher end than Final Cut ever could be. Yeah. But again, manage your expectations. You're making YouTube videos. You're not James Cameron. Yeah. And if you are James Cameron, stop making YouTube videos and go be James Cameron. So the Mac experience definitely is more fluid. If you don't have any skill set to begin with, let me qualify that. If you don't have a skill set to begin with and you're looking to just get into video editing, Mac and Final Cut Pro seems to be the most simple, straightforward, and reliable solution. Yeah. But if you're already dedicated to PC and you're into it, take a look at DaVinci Resolve or the Adobe suite. But Eli's right. I bitch about Adobe on Twitter. Every video I edit at least has 1 or 2 screenshots of me window not responding or failure during render with no message. The nice thing is, though, Adobe has excellent tech support. They always get back to me immediately when I have a problem. But there are no lack of problems there. It's not the most stable software suite on earth.
But then why do you keep using it then?
Because I have a $10,000 dual Xeon, dual 1080 machine here with 3 4K screens, and I do not want to replace that with a Mac trash can just for video editing, because I do far more than video editing. Video editing, surprisingly, is a small part of what I do with this computer. Yeah, okay. I do a lot of stuff with the programming and stuff like that, stuff that you don't necessarily see a lot of on the channel. Yeah. I'm heavily vested into PC. That's why. Okay. That's the answer I give you, Eli. Honestly, if I had a MacBook Pro sitting in front of me right now, I would probably just use that for all my video editing and everything else I do on PC. But I don't, so I'm just going to sit here and suffer through it for the rest of my life.
Oh, there you go. Well, so we have been babbling along for literally 2 hours. So do you have any final thoughts for the my viewers at home?
Oh, God. If you're thinking about doing YouTube, do us all a favor and go to a psychiatrist and get a clear mental bill of health before you even enter this arena. Mm-hmm. Don't think that doing YouTube is going to solve your problems, and sit down and ask yourself why you want to do it. That's the biggest thing. Ask yourself why you want to do it. If the answer is I want to be famous, I want people to recognize me, I want the money, those are not the reasons to start a YouTube channel. If you start the YouTube channel with those expectations, you'll go nowhere. I guarantee it. If you want to start the YouTube channel because you're genuinely interested in creating content, you actually like the craft of creating content, and then you like that people will enjoy and find your content, not forced on people, but people will organically find and watch your content. Those are the right reasons to do it. If you feel like you have to get everybody on earth to retweet your stuff constantly, you're not going to make it. So my best advice to you is just make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, and the best reason of all is just to have a hobby. If you're just doing it as a hobby, then that's the greatest thing. It could go nowhere, it could go everywhere, but your expectations are set that it's a success either way.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time today, and I'll see everybody else at the next video.
Sounds good. Peace out, guys.
See ya.